And now it's time for Gabbing with Goblins with your host, Griselda.
Hello, hello. Thank you all so much. It is so wonderful to be back. I have been looking forwards to having another episode of Gabbin with Goblins for so long, and I am absolutely delighted to tell you that we have a wonderful, wonderful guest lined up for us today. So today we are going to be talking with the one, the only, the Goblin Paladin Roselia. Roselia, would you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing, Griselda. Hello there, everybody. I'm Roselia. I am a Goblin Paladin with a little bit of a dip into Barbarian just for funsies. You know how it is. And I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. Let me tell you, I'll give you a little bit of a shout out here.
Aw, thank you.
Oh, of course, darling. It is absolutely wonderful to have another guest on the show here. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Roselia here, she is a wonderful, very smooth voice. I gotta say, I absolutely love that aspect of your streams,
Oh,
streamer.
thank you.
But for those of our audience who would not necessarily know anything about you, would you? What would they be able to expect if they were to come over to your streams one day?
Well, I typically keep things relatively low energy, and I like to play what I like to call mild challenges when I play games. A mild challenge is something that's a little bit more difficult than usual most of the time, but it's not something that's going to cause me to rip my hair out. I like to keep that where I like to keep my hair where my head is. Thank you. Mild, yes, live bait. They're mild challenges at best. Okay.
Hello, live bait. I assume that you're familiar with Roselia already.
Yes, that's one of my Lord Commander mods.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this is a great time to remind the audience that if at any point you have questions, thoughts, concerns, anything you would like to share or would like the guest or I to try and answer for you, please feel free to let us know in the chat and we will address all of the audience entrants as they come up.
Yes, yes, please, by all means.
So, what have you been up to lately then, Roselia? I've been hearing that you've got a lot going on and a lot that you got in the pipeline, so to speak.
Yeah, relatively recently, I just reached 1,000 followers.
Oh my god, congratulations! That's
Thank you.
huge! Wonderful!
Yeah, I do things at a pretty slow pace in general, so I think it taking sort of taking my time with it helped me. I don't think I would have been able to handle sort of that amount of people if I achieved that a little bit earlier, so I'm pretty happy with that pace. Um I'm also planning a second karaoke stream as a result and debuting my live 2D model. Well, a few live 2D models, one of which you're seeing a preview right now. This is my Oni form.
Oh my god. I love it. I
Thank
gotta
you.
tell you, as another goblin that occasionally has horns, it's always lovely to see this particular subset of our community represented.
Certainly.
Horns goblins, tailed goblins, all sorts of goblins out there these days. Hello, Tyrus. Welcome to
Hello,
the
Prince.
audience. Now, how exactly did you get yourself into all this streaming? And I suppose also going along with that, obviously there's an awful lot of goblins that are streaming, but a lot of the goblins I've noticed don't tend to, at least initially, use their own faces for their streaming. They sort of hide behind some other form of illusions. They look like Hilmies or something else for a time. So, what made you get into the streaming business? And what made you decide to be totally truthful and living in your own self?
Well, before I even really watched a lot of VTubers, like when I just barely knew the concept existing, thanks to, people like Kizuna Ai and whatnot,
Oh, for sure.
I had planned since about, I'd like to say 2019, or maybe around that, to eventually start streaming. I'd had my design for quite a few years before I streamed at all, at least regularly. The only times I'd streamed on Twitch before that were just before Discord had a good screen share. I streamed for my PS4 in order to show my friend Bloodborne. And the old Konami. Do you remember the Silent Hills demo for PS4 a long
Oh,
time ago?
yeah. My God, that
Yeah,
was so terrifying.
I loved it, but I'm also a little bit weird like that.
You're a bit of a masochist when it comes to horror.
A sadist when it comes to horror because I like making the monsters remember who they should be scared of.
Oh my God. Keep talking like this, and I don't know if we'll be able to hear this.
My goodness, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, please do go on. It's always wonderful to hear what gets people's engines running.
But yes,
That is
I
so
figured,
interesting too, though, because I have noticed there's such a big overlap between the trans community and goblins, and it's
yes,
remarkable how little things like that Bloodborne game can sort of become a little niche part of the Venn diagram between those communities.
if honestly, if I had a gold coin for every time I met a trans streamer who was into Souls, I don't know, I'd be able to afford VR by now or something.
Oh, God, I'll drink to that, you and me both.
Oh yes, thank you. Um, but yeah, going back to the streaming thing, I decided, if I'm gonna be drawing and playing video games anyway, since I can't do as much normal work in the human disguise I've adopted, I might as well stream it. Do it for my job, and I might not be making a lot of money, but it is probably the only job I've had that I've not loathed. Zebri, you're looking fabulous, dear.
You're here, you talk this shit, and you're looking fabulous, dears. Oh, Zebra, you didn't even need to tell us that for us to know it. Hello, darling. It's so good to see you.
Zelda, I think you would love Zebri, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I remember Zepri. They were part of my fashion showcase when I debuted. A lovely, lovely gnome.
Yes, very much so.
Becoming your best self through defeating arduous challenges. Can't imagine why the trans community flocks to soul spawns. You know,
It's a mystery.
that is something, though. I do want to continue hearing your story, but as a brief aside, why do you suppose that there's such a large attraction towards this particular sort of game? Maybe is it the gameplay aspect? Is it the aesthetics, the storytelling? What? What? As someone who is familiar more so than I am, I have never played one of these games. But what do you suppose it is that might be attracting this sort of community?
For my part, at the very least, I can't speak too much for other people,
Of course, of
but
course.
the custom character creation, even if it's a little bit, on the wacky side sometimes, that definitely is awesome. Just to make an image of yourself in a difficult action adventure game, with the RPG stuff, and just going through and kicking ass despite all the odds is a huge part of it, I think. And it makes the experience feel a bit more personal to me. Um, because when I'm playing a lot of Souls likes, it's fun to make a green character who does all this cool stuff and um, doesn't need to spend tons of money to make themselves look the way they want to look. Um, so that's definitely a big part of it. And there's also that fun little coffin in Dark Souls too, that if you sit down in there, instant gender swap,
Oh, that's
which is always
very
fun.
convenient.
Oh yeah,
I do hear tell that it's a little bit gatekept by a couple of ogres or something. So, it's not
yeah, just
ideal gatekeeping in this sort of community. But, it's still otherwise very accessible once you get past the protesters.
indeed. And the other thing too is I think the um the Souls games, like proper, do have a lot of things where gender isn't always, it's not considered a solid thing all the time. Because if you look at the character of I believe his name was Gwendolyn in the first game, or in the first Dark Souls game. Yeah, Gwendolyn. Um I believe it goes with he, him, but he was raised in a more feminine way by his father and sort of represented the energy of the moon, the whole dark moon thing, which is typically associated with more feminine energy than his father's solar energy. Um, and I don't know, just there's a few things in the series that just make me go, hmm.
The follow up on that, one thing I do remember seeing from watching someone else playing was, I think it's in the third game of those, you can get an item that was owned by this Gwendolyn person, where it changes the animations of your model.
Yes, that is you can find that in the room that they occupied when you go back to that city from the first game.
What an incredibly cisgender thing to hear. The way a ring that magically makes your body move as if you were a woman, that's a very, very typical cisgender experience from what I've heard.
The secret is it doesn't do anything. It just makes you think you can do it, and you do it anyway. Yeah.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Very empowering. The unrelenting need to crush your enemies underfoot and look great while doing it.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of
It
it.
does certainly help, It's very high maintenance looking as good as these fine goblins you see before you, and it's very difficult sometimes to maintain that in an active lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, make sure you take care of your skin, get the grime off of you, make sure the gore doesn't stain your hair, etc.
Oh,
It's a whole thing.
that was always the rudest thing in those sorts of games. You spend hours, I'm telling you, making these characters, and then the second you die, boom, you're turned into a hideous zombie sort of version of yourself. Or, oh, you're
Yeah.
covered in shit and blood, and oh, you can't even see all the work you put into it.
It's a shame. That's why I'm glad that in Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne and whatnot, you're able to, if you choose to, remain a bit more less beef jerky-ish. And in Elden Ring, they have the most important item, soap,
Very
which
true. Very
is
true.
amazing.
I can't tell you how many times I've been stabbed or shot while touching up my mascara in the compact. So true. So true. Although I will say, from experience, a knife is a wonderful aid in order to get that nice, sharp cat's eye eyeliner going, you know? There's no
Certainly.
shame in using rulers, and a knife is both very aesthetically appropriate and pleasing, and also very useful as a straight edge. Hello,
Hmm.
hello, Jeannie. Welcome to the show. Take your seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Hello there.
Now, speaking of your earlier years, I believe we have a couple of clips today. The first of which is it's going along with, I believe this is one of your earlier memories. Let me see here. Oh yeah, there we go.
Okay. Okay, you know what?
Oh, yes.
Fuck. Okay. Fuck me then. Sorry. Okay. Okay, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck.
That was a
Okay.
fun day.
Fuck me then.
Ain't
Sorry.
that just how it goes, though? Now,
It really
I'm
was.
noticing here. This is what exactly are we looking at here? This is some sort of cat statue with a tail that's on fire.
Yeah, the burial watchdogs watch
They're
over the
dogs.
something like that. I don't even know what the folks who run the Golden Order are thinking, if they are even thinking. But they watch over the roots of the Erd trees or the Erd tree to make sure, if I remember correctly, like the spirits sort of get recycled back into the roots of that tree and get reborn. I think they kind of spawn off the tree themselves. It's a really weird process.
Oh,
I can't explain it well,
huh.
but the tarnished archaeologist on YouTube has very good studies on the entire thing that sort of delve into real world history, religion, mythology, and shows a lot of really good exploration in the games, and those sort of give me more appreciation for the world, because most of the time I will play through the game and just go like, "Whoa, pretty colors." It
Very
takes me a
fair.
while.
Very fair. Now, well, obviously, the first thing a lot of people will notice about this clip, other than the fact that if you're gonna be maintaining some sort of tree, you really shouldn't have any part of you on fire. Not a great idea. Very
Yeah,
poor
not the best.
management. But obviously, a lot of people are going to notice the fact that we're looking at a slightly different look for you here. What went into that choice exactly?
Ah, yes. So back. One moment. Let me take a little sip of water.
Of course, audience, make sure you're getting hydrated yourself. Very important.
Excuse me. So early on, I chose to be manifested in a bit more of a 3D way. It was the easiest thing I had access to at the moment. A friend of mine, who was streaming, um, told me about it, and it was probably the easiest thing to get set up at that time, since it was basically just a 3D character creator, and I really love those. Um, and so I was just like, you know what, fine. I have a bunch of different models and outfits for that, including one that I hope to bring back. It's been a long time, and she's not made her reappearance in a decent amount of time, but I have a maid outfit, and the redeem was called Maid in Heaven, obviously making a little joke, a little Joe joke there, if you would.
That sounds
And
absolutely wonderful. I'm sure your audience would be more than happy to see that again.
well, they eventually it's going to happen probably within 2024. Cough, cough.
Oh yeah, I've heard you've got some big plans set up for that.
I do. And I'm looking forward to that. You understood that reference. You better have understood that reference, Severy.
Oh my god. Now, one thing I'm wondering here, obviously, we have to use a little bit of illusions, just to keep up full appearances and all that. But one element I'm very curious about is it seems consistent even to way back when. You have a very noticeable facial feature in your scar there. Oh,
Yes,
what made you decide to keep that?
it's a reminder. It's it's a lesson I learned a long time ago, and one that I want to make sure that I never forget. We
Oh,
can leave it at that for now.
all right, all right. You may not be a wizard, but you can keep your secrets. So, is there anything that you would like to reveal a little bit, perhaps going into some of those 2024 plans that you've got going? Is there anything you would like to tell the audience to sort of whet the appetite?
Oh, certainly. Um, if you would like to show the little video of the fluffy unlicensed merchandise object that I showed you wearing my normal mercenary outfit, which
Of
most of
course.
the time, folks, I'm not dressed, in my Oni garb. I'm dressed as a Renaissance mercenary of sorts. Not 100% historically accurate, but I'm a literal fantasy creature, people. Come on.
Of course, of course.
And this was done by some fantastic artists based on some I had the initial sketch done, like the initial drawings myself. Um and I went to a few other fantastic artists to help me. Nari Natsu did the artwork and did a lot of the like basic
Do
cutting of all
do
the
they
declare.
have any sort of witch presence or anything like that?
Yes. Let me give a little link. They have not streamed in a while. They've been rather busy of late, but
Understandable.
I will post it in our little chat. Um, I'm not sure if I can post links in your chat, so let's put it in
Oh,
the Discord.
absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So this is the one who did the basic artwork,
Oh, I see. See.
and the one who recorded this video as well as did the animation, or the rigging rather, was Cherry, who has actually popped up on my channel a few times, um, as well. So both of these are very, very talented people who helped a lot, and you will be seeing more of Cherry's work on my stream in the future too.
That is absolutely wonderful. This is a wonderful looking model. I do have to wonder though. I am by no means any sort of historical authority, but can you tell me a little bit about the influences here? You mentioned Renaissance mercenaries, I think?
Ah, yes. So I've always loved that their the garb that they wear, the my German's terrible, forgive me. Landsknecht, I think, especially. Um, and this is very heavily inspired by them. The whole idea of wearing essentially your wealth on your person, but doing it for like fighting in sheer stylish outfits like that. Like, why wouldn't you want to style on your foes? It's perfect for that. The slashed fabrics, the bright colors, though in my case they're a little bit muted. Um, just to show the alignment so people remember. um, I got to keep up the whole villain thing. It's natural for me, and just I don't know. There's just something stylish about it that I don't see other paladins often do. Because a lot of other paladins, understandably so, will have like a surcoat, a great helm, things like that, and that's all well and good. I was planning on originally looking something like that, and I still do have armor like that hidden away somewhere. But I figured, you know what? This is more me. And so I decided to do
Absolutely.
that.
You gotta go for it. Honestly, so many paladins, they're obsessed with full heavy armor. They're all about the plate mail and all of that. And sure, that's fine, but what if you just want to be a real dexterous so-and-so? What if all you really need is leather armor or a breastplate or anything like that? Paladinhood does tend to focus on the bucket heads, but there's an expansive history of wonderful battle garb out there. Very true. And
Indeed.
wonderful that you are such an enthusiast of the history of your trade and your craft to want to bring that more into the more modern consciousness of it.
Oh, certainly. Because I think it's, obviously, war's scary. But these are people who did a lot of, like, they knew that they were basically screwed. These soldiers back in the day, they knew that, they get hit like once or twice, they're dead. Like, because the medical stuff back then wasn't always all that great. But they're like, you know what, if we're going to go out looking absolutely fabulous, and I respect the hell out of that.
Truly, nihilism is a very depressing philosophy, sort of by design. It's important to have some levity where you can.
Indeed.
One thing I wanted to ask about, and again, I am no historical authority, but how did you come about the little collared shirt and tie there? It's a very snappy looking, almost sort of modern business suit sort of aesthetic.
Ah, yes. So that was a little thing I wanted to do because I'm still in the modern age, and I like to sort of mix both modern and historical things because obviously I'm wearing very modern glasses as well. I'm using a computer, I'm playing video games.
Very true, very true.
And this is, I think, like a sort of modern take on that very classic sort of vibe. And honestly, at least especially the pants, you see a lot of like pants for HEMA, like historical European martial arts, that people will wear for sparring that actually have a very similar vibe to what I'm wearing. Like when I go out to HEMA practice on Saturday, we're gonna see people like that. And so by fully embracing the fact, like Zebri says, they're anachronisms, by fully embracing the fact that I am indeed a fantastical being, I have a lot more freedom with my design. I don't have to be 100% historically accurate because, my memory's not the best. When I have a duel at 5 but a parent-teacher meeting at 6, I mean, considering the fact that I am actually a parent and I'm the one who can make it to the meetings most often, yeah, no, that's my vibe most of the time.
Very true. Very, very true. I have fortunately, as an auntie, managed to avoid a lot of those sort of headaches, but I understand where you're coming from. And, you let mention something very interesting. I was not aware that you were a practitioner of historic European martial arts, HEMA, as you put it.
Yes.
What got you into that field exactly?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always liked swords and fighting and things like that. I was in various Korean martial arts when I was a kid, especially Taekwondo. I've always enjoyed sparring, and I've always had sort of a fascination with knights, samurai, the various Chinese swordsmen from those old kung fu movies. And, I've always played with, like, sticks and wooden swords and stuff with kids when I was growing up. And, I've always gravitated toward things like that. And when I lived in the strange land I refer to as Yeehaw Land, I'm sure most of you can guess where that is. I started wielding sword-like objects, at least in the form of lightsabers, for a group called Saber Guild, which is a Lucasfilm recognized group that does lightsaber choreography in screen accurate costumes for charity. And I did that for a while because there was no other sword related thing in the area. And then I learned that there was a HEMA group there, and I'm like, finally, my chance to shine. It's as close as one can get to battle without the heroes knocking on the door. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very convenient not to have to go around breaking standards of decency or law or whatever you want to call it.
Indeed.
Now, are there any particular styles within the umbrella of HEMA that you find yourself particularly drawn to? Obviously, you mentioned swords, but there's an awful lot of swords and just as many, if not more, ways to use those swords.
Oh, certainly. So I primarily study the works of Meyer, who was from the 1500s. His book, which is actually right next to me. The book I study from is The Art of Sword Combat, which was written in 1568, and he teaches how to use a few different weapons in here: the rapier, the long sword, which is the two-handed sword, and if I remember correctly, the dusak, which is sort of a it's kind of like a cutlass, like a one-handed curved sword. And I also learned a little bit of dagger back when I was in Yeehaw Land as well, from the same system for one of his other books. And I tend to have a focus on the rapier and dusak, the one-handed weapons, but I do often default to the sort of longsword style. And even in my choreography, I tend to focus more on the one-handed stuff. If you're familiar with any Star Wars things, I practice Makashi, which is what, if you know Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress from that series, that's the style that I use. And even nowadays, I've learned that there are people who use LED sabers, legally distinct, of course.
Of course.
To do actual sparring in tournaments, and I'm planning on getting back into things because it's been a while since I've been in the swing of things, so to speak. But I'm gonna go back into that and bring honor to the art of Makashi.
Oh, that
But
sounds
yeah.
absolutely wonderful. And honestly, I am not a super fan of the Star Wars, but I know enough people I care about, enough people who are very passionate about it to know. And I gotta say, if you have to pick someone to model yourself after, to model your swordplay and your general atmosphere around yourself, I gotta say that modeling yourself after Christopher Lee is a tremendously powerful choice. Incredibly charismatic man. Would have stooped him myself if the ages had been different, but so it is, so it goes.
I get you. I even have a cape based on his own that was custom made for me.
Oh my god, that is wonderful.
Yes, I love it. I want to get back into the cosplay for these things. It's been a long time. But I think if I'm gonna be a villain, I might as well be a classy one.
Of course. Also, welcome. I'm just a simple furry. Sorry, almost called you a fury. I'm just a simple furry. Welcome to the audience. Make yourself comfortable. Also, I do have to say that all I could think about reading that name was you being some sort of country southern lawyer, as if to say, oh, I'm just a simple country furry, but even I can see so and so and so.
that I think my one of my goblin alter egos, friends. I'll go with friend. Aero would probably love saying that. I'm just a simple furry. That's how she would do it. I know Zebri's a good friend of Aera's.
In the immortal words of Reba herself, you're just a simple woman who works too hard, who loves her kids and never stops, with gentle hands and a heart of a fighter. You're a survivor? Is that what you're going for?
Don't trust no low-down southern lawyer.
Very true, very true. Now, we also have a couple of more recent clips. Now, you mentioned being something of an artist. How did you get into the field of art? What sort of art do you find yourself specializing in?
So I typically draw sort of cartoony style with, anime influence and stuff like that. Some of the things that influenced me the most with my art style, though you might not be able to tell right away, are the works of Osamu Tezuka, who is like the godfather of anime and manga.
Oh, of course, Astro Boy,
Yeah.
Cyborg 7, Simba, the White Lion, all that pornography he sent to Walt Disney, of course.
And a lot of more cartoony styled artists. And they're like, Eiichiro Oda from of One Piece fame. And then of course just various different cartoonists and whatnot in the United States and whatnot. Like, too many influences to name off the top of my head, but I also like to blend them with just various other I guess other sources here and different art styles to sort of make a blend of things. As you can probably tell, I'm all about mixing and blending things together. I mean, I'm an Oni goblin, for crying out loud. I'm already a lot in one being.
You know, that is so important, though, not to just flatten yourself out to any one singular sort of presentation or identity or any of that stuff. You're a modern woman. You contain multitudes, and you should be able to express those multitudes freely.
Thank you, thank you.
Of course, of course.
I will say the biggest influence that people might find surprising, though, is Captain Underpants.
Really? Do tell.
I used to be more of a writer when I was much younger, and I doodle as much as any other kid. But after having read Captain Underpants as a kid and seeing the kids make their comics and what, I wanted to do that. I didn't know anybody who drew at the time, so I was just like, you know what? I'll do it myself. And now I'm in my 30s and doing it myself. I don't do comics as much as I used to, and I want to get back into doing comic things, but yeah, Captain Underpants is probably the one of the biggest reasons I am doing any art at all.
That's wonderful. And I do gotta say that from what I've seen, it has been a very positive influence on a lot of children of that generation. Having someone who is a writer, who's a creative type, who is also very open about their own developmental disorders, various other handicaps, hindrances, often of more invisible sorts, that still managed to accomplish quite a lot. I think it's very important. It's wonderful that they had that sort of influence on you. This is the deep lore I've been craving. Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Now, you mentioned there that forgive me if I am misremembering, but you mentioned you were interested in drawing comics?
Yes, back when I was in high school, I was part of a very small team, and we did actually release a self-published manga at a very small convention. I wrote I drew a little comic called Samurai Doll, where the unfairly executed spirit of a samurai inhabited a adorable plushie and fought the this is gonna get really weird.
Go
An
on.
Australian arsonist and a teddy bear. It was so weird, but that was also the first time I ever had somebody cosplay the main human. Like, I had somebody actually cosplay the main human character and walk around the con with me for advertising.
Oh my
Um,
god, that is wonderful.
we broke even, which is better than I expected
Hey,
for
that's
profit.
something. This was your first time doing something like that. To break even on your first time is something that should absolutely be celebrated.
It was such a fun experience, though. I want to go back and have an artist alley table in the future. I just need to get more, consistent, regular at that sort of thing, and I might revisit that story and redraw it or something. I don't know. It was definitely very edgy high schooler. But with this very silly twist to it because I still am always gonna have that silly vibe. Hello, Raven.
Hello, Raven. Welcome. Make yourself comfortable in the audience. And for anyone who missed the initial announcements, this is a open forum style talk show. So if anyone has any sorts of questions, please feel free to let us know. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you, Raven. Thank you. Oh, that is very interesting though, and it it feels to me the sort of story that would still have a very active audience in today's markets too. You know, the kids they're all about this isekai sort of thing right now. This feels like it was perhaps ahead of its time. You know, the story of a warrior from out of time and out of space being brought into the form of this little plushy doll.
Oh yeah,
Would you
I
be looking to revisit the same plot, or are there other sorts of concepts that you're more interested in currently pursuing?
so about the isekai thing. Interesting you would bring that up.
Oh,
Um, while I might not visit Daisuke's story, that's the guy's that was the doll's name. I am a little bit of a I don't overindulge myself in it, but I am a bit of a connoisseur of certain isekai stories. I know it's a bit of an oversaturated genre, but I don't oversaturate myself with watching it, if that makes sense. I only watch the ones that I specifically want to, or read the ones I want to. And for some of them, and don't get me wrong, I love a lot of I do like some of the ones where you reincarnate as some sort of OP monster. I like that. Don't get me wrong; it has its place,
it's a
and it
power
can be very fun.
fantasy.
Yeah,
Not too
but
complicated, not too challenging, but sometimes that's what you're looking for in a fantasy. Yeah.
yeah, like for instance, reincarnated as a slime made me fall in love with anime again. Like I stopped watching a lot of things, and I watched the first episode, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I like this. It just made me so happy just seeing this goofy little slime work its way up, to being able to take care of himself and his entire village of goblins, mind you. um and that just made me very happy seeing that sort of thing. And I'm it's very slow work at the moment, but I have been working on an isekai novella about somebody being reincarnated as a goblin. The things I wanted to focus on, though, she is not OP, for
Okay.
one. She is not trying to change the world to make it more like her own world. She might, look for a few things that she used to enjoy, but she's fully embracing this new world. And finally, I wanted to focus on an asexual and aromantic protagonist. No, no
Oh,
harems.
that is wonderful.
Yeah, the initial, like the protagonist herself, her name before she died was Tetsuko. She was a librarian up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Had a car accident. Her truck, fell off the side of the road, with black ice. Unfortunate, obviously. And a deity took pity on her. The standard setup for an isekai.
Of course.
But she just decided to have a bit more of a normal life, and where she ends up being reincarnated. And this isn't too spoilery. This is just, I guess, a bit of fun locational things. She gets reincarnated into a tribe of goblins, which sort of fulfill the which sort of talk about the way I write goblins most of the time, called the Metal Clan, which working title for them, but they're a group of goblins who, I guess, like many of the other ones I write, are very focused on recycling.
Hmm.
Instead of being like, angry little bastards that try to murder everything, they are obsessively clean and will, if there's any garbage, they will take it and find a use for it. So I like that sort of flipping the trope, where goblins are often portrayed as being very stupid or backwards or something. No, they're these ones, they will take the whole scrap and artificer sort of deals that are often there, but they turn it into a valuable service. And I set it in a place that's very similar to let me remember how to say it. The some sort of highlands in like a sort of forested highlands in where was it at? Bear with me. The right, the Cameroonian highland forests. It's in
Cameroon?
yeah, and it's like between Cameroon and Nigeria. And it's a very beautiful place. Like I'll send you an image of the sort of area that I think of, or like that's in my mind when I'm writing it. And this is an image of the park or one of the parks or whatever. It's a very beautiful place, and I figured that'd be a pretty fun place to write. Yulia, hello,
Oh
hello,
my god.
princess.
Hello, Yulia. Make yourself comfortable.
My best frenemy.
Oh? Well, that is a story we're gonna have to talk about in just a moment. Oh well. I had this up already. This is a little something I was told
Yes.
is coming up. This is initially, I believe you mentioned this is intended to be sort of a phone background, but you're
Yes.
looking to make it into some sort of merchandise too?
Yes, indeed. I am looking to do that, relatively soonish, but you'll see, next yearish, early in that time.
Wonderful. People will keep our eyes out. But this is the picture I was actually trying to show here. And this is absolutely gorgeous landscape. I feel
Yeah,
this is such a terrible trap that so many fantasy world builders get themselves caught in. The idea that you have to go with the sort of status quo as set by a legacy of creators like a Tolkien, where you have to go with these similar concepts for what sort of peoples live in a world. What does the world look like? And you end up stuck in a world where they can't imagine of anything more interesting to exist within than an environment of like rocky coasts and deciduous forests and British mountain ranges. It's so terribly boring. There's
Yeah,
so
I like
many
to make it different.
beautiful ecosystems in the wild in places like Africa here. I am delighted that you're trying to focus in on this particular sort of environment to bring it to a larger scope of audience.
Yeah, the place where the Goblin Clan lives is like it's in a deeper part of the forest, and as you see, there's a lot of rolling hills. There's some cave systems in my version here. Um, and unlike our world's version, the seasons vary wildly there. It's not just the humid subtropical sort of deal. There's also, harsh winters and everything. But their specific area is protected by very carefully grown thorns and poisonous plants, which I really like. That they're like specifically growing plants. It's not even a magical thing there. They're just that good with taking care of all these old things. And the other place in like some of the other places nearby, there's a port town nearby that has humans, dwarves, and elves. And one of the, I guess, biggest I struggle to say, I'm not sure if landmark would be the right word, but it's an inland sea called the Inland Star Sea, and it's famous for how clear and reflective the water is at night. And there are a great many city-states on giant ships in this area, which I cannot wait to get to when I get there.
You speak in my language. I grew up on stories of nautical folklore and history, so creating your own little Libertalia here, your own little nation states of pirates and privateers and sailors sounds absolutely chef's kiss. Wonderful. I can't wait to see what you do with that.
Yeah, it's I don't get to talk about it super often, but it's something I want to, as soon as I'm getting done with a lot of these technical issues on my end, get back into writing full force and hope people enjoy it. I want to provide, illustrations for it, or at the very least, get the sketches so somebody who has a slightly higher technical skill than me can do things like that. But
Well, there should be no shame in it being a collaborative effort. I would say
yeah,
there are
definitely.
very few productions in the wild, especially in the wild of something like cartooning, where it is purely just a one-person job.
Oh yeah, it's I want to always try to make sure that I'm collaborative in a lot of my efforts. I sometimes try to do things on my own, but then I've been realizing more and more recently that I don't have the time for that. I and it's more fun to work with others and get things done to I guess all that time babysitting my little sister growing up and watching Bob the Builder just sort of got stuck in my head.
Oh, you can do it. Yes, you can do it, in fact.
Indeed.
But yeah, I am sure if you put the word out, if you got on the bullhorn and talked with this, there would be tons of people that would be interested in participating in some sort of supportive, creative role here. This seems like an absolutely marvelous project for an artist to be able to be a part of.
Yeah.
Also, go on, do go on.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I just there's a lot that I have to work on and want to work on with people, and I think I'm looking forward to all the folks who want to join in, like with this, with other things set in that sort of setting, like some of the audio dramas I write, or short audio scripts and audio dramas I'm writing for ASMR things and whatnot. I'm pretty in audio role plays. I'm like really excited to share more of that world.
Yeah, I did manage to catch a little bit of that the last time you did one of those ASMR streams. And I personally don't really understand the sort of sexual element of it, but I gotta say, hearing things at that frequencies, maybe it's just the nature of having these big old handlebar ears, but it does do something for you.
Yeah, I normally don't do anything too spicy with my ASMR, the last stream being a slight exception. Um, though that's more of a, if you want me to do the spicy things, you're gonna have to pay literal money for it.
Fair enough.
Um, Mama's gotta eat.
Of course. Take care of yourself.
Um,
Do whatever hustle you wanna do, girl.
have I considered, once I have it written out, I'll be having a sort of RPG source book in my setting?
Oh,
I've not considered it, but I have considered, and I have written stat blocks for certain things for various monsters and feats that could work in like D&D. I need to adapt some of them for Pathfinder as well. But I have considered at least doing here little pamphlets and stuff here and there.
again, it seems like a wonderful sort of way to do this kind of world building. I will look forward to it with bated breath.
Thank you.
Now, also, one thing I just wanted to say that is absolutely wonderful to see is, every time I see one of these isekai series, the thing I always note is that, hey, these authors, it tends to be okay. The actual fantasy part of it is like, oh, whatever, they're doing whatever they're doing. But there's always at least one hyperfixation sort of personal passion that they actually care about, that they will then sneak in to the plot of whatever it is they're trying to do with their series. Like, as one I saw not too long ago, ostensibly about someone who went into a world with the power to make any sort of potions that she wanted. But really, the plot was actually just about this author's idea of how to do effective socioeconomic reform.
Wow.
And it's really lovely to see a very unselfish sort of focus in on that sort of hyperfixation within isekai's scope. From what it sounds like, please forgive me and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what it sounds like, the sort of focused angle that you're going with is something akin to ecological sustainability, environmental custodianship, that sort of very eco-conscious sort of focus first.
Yeah, the goblins are very much into that sort of thing. They want to make sure that, their view is that their world, they don't know how they got there. They don't know how they got there completely. They have ideas and theories, but that doesn't matter to them. All they know is that they're there, and as far as they know, that's what they got, and they need to take good care of it. And they appreciate the beauty of everything, and they see that even somebody's trash, can have a good use. Like if they see, people, discarding bits of scrap metal, they're like, oh, there we go. We can make some scale armor that are arrow tips or something. Even if it's something as basic as that. Now, of course, this can lead to them being perceived as a little bit obsessive and dumpster divey at times. They're not perfect. And they do also have to battle old stereotypes too, because they do face some troubles with certain groups of people in their world. Ironically, a lot of paladins aren't over fond of them due to old, incorrect, legends and stuff about them. Because, humanocentrists are going to humanocentrist, and they get weird. We already know how they get.
Of course, and obviously, as as members of various sorts of communities that have historically been treated as less than the normal human. It's not something great that you want to go around proliferating and reproducing within the worlds of your own imagination. You have been given this privilege by virtue of being a creative individual. You shouldn't have to then stick with just reproducing a world as is rather than just a world that could be.
Yeah. And like I said, while there are some factions that aren't exactly the nicest in there, it's not the biggest focus of everything there. Because I don't want it to be a focus. You'll see hints and things like that, but it's more about the whole it's more about, the not wasting things. It's about companionship, adventure, and sort of adapting to a new life. Because that's exactly what Tetsuko, or Moth as she's called as a goblin. I
Moth,
know that,
like the insect moth.
like the insect. I didn't. I know there's apparently. I think there's a goblin VTuber named Moth. I didn't know that at the time of writing, so it's a
Oh
working
dear,
title.
yeah, that could
It's a
be a little
working title, so I
difficult.
might switch it to something different. And a lot of the names I give for the characters in this are very much working titles. But I'll just call her by her old name, Tetsuko there, because that's still how she refers to herself in her head. She again, she does not want to change the world she's in for to make it more like, Pacific Northwest United States or anything. She is still at her heart a librarian, and she loves, archiving things and helping out with, keeping records and everything
It's a
and
very
learning
noble
more.
profession, ultimately, a librarian's job is just to be able to catalog resources. It may be knowledge, maybe physical goods and utilities, and to make sure those are accessible to a community at large. It's a perfectly positive thinking sort of goal to have.
Yeah. And I'll say too, another thing I wanted to do a little bit different. I don't know how common it is, but this is also when she's a human still, she is over 30 when she dies. So I also wanted to have sort of a more mature, I guess, character who's not instantly, just doing lots of weird kid stuff all the time. I think, the, I guess, light novel or novella protagonist for an isekai or something. I don't know how many of them are in that sort of age gap. I can think of the one from I think Tanya the Evil is maybe in his late 20s, early 30s. I mean, he's a complete asshole, but I think that
It's
he's
a very
that age.
problematic series for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. And I think there's a few other isekai protagonists who are in that sort of age bracket, but I don't think there's many that have the sort of mix of properties that Tetsuko does. Because again, over 30 librarian, ace arrow, just living her best life. I like that sort of idea.
It sounds wonderful. They tend to aim for the age bracket of their audiences, you understand? I suppose.
Yeah.
Now maybe this is reaching too far into the future, this plot, but are there plans to have any other sorts of isekai people involved in here, or is she very much the sole fish out of water sort?
That, let me double check because I do actually have notes on a lot of these things.
Again, feel free to no comment if any of these digging too deep into the future
Yeah,
plot
I
you've
can't.
got planned.
Um, all I can say is there might be. I'm looking at my notes, and there might be.
All right, all right. And you're planning to release this. Is this intended to first be a sort of light novel kind of approach and then transition into the graphic elements? Or are you planning from the get go, this is going to be a webcomic, this is going to be a serialized visual graphic novel sort of deal?
I'm planning it to be sort of a light novel or novella sort of deal, released when I can. I'm a relatively busy mom, um, and I have various medical and other health things going on, so I can only release things when I'm able to, and have the energy to work on them. But I do want to, at the very least, get some of this out. I know I read the first I think I read the first chapter or so on stream before. Excuse me. And that was a lot of fun. But I do want to make sure I can get it out in a decent amount of time when I have time. Because I'm, working on quite a few things at once, and I can't spread myself too thin. Otherwise, I won't get anything done.
It's very important to be able to take care of yourself. I totally understand what you're going with there. I personally do not have the additional responsibilities though, so I gotta ask, as someone who is coming at this from the angle of being a parent, as well as a partner to someone, as well as a working individual, as well as a wife, and all that. How how has that affected or influenced how you view and your craft here?
Um, well, I'm trying to, I guess, trying to think of a good way to put it. Those are big parts of my identity, being a mom and being a housewife and whatnot who works from home. This whole VTubing thing being my literal job. Um, and I guess like they make they've made me feel a bit more compassion and empathy for people, I think. Which sounds it might sound strange from the get-go, but it's something that I have it's been hard for me to understand people when I was younger. And having a loving family has helped me understand more and has influenced a lot of how I interact with people. Um, and I think it's helped me even like the whole interacting with chat and everything, and all the wonderful coworkers I've met. I consider every VTuber my coworker in a weird way. Um, and interacting with other VTubers and whatnot and streamers has helped me, I think, interact better with my own family, um, and close family friends and whatnot. Because I get more. I guess I get more viewpoints from different people, and I learn more about how people interact with others, and it's helped a lot, I think, because normally I'm a very, very quiet, reserved person. I don't, despite the fact that my job is literally speaking all the time, I don't normally speak out loud. When it's just me, I'm pretty quiet. I have spent literal days before in silence, um, especially if it's just me. Um, but it's helped me open up quite a bit more, I think, and has also taught me a lot more about people, I think, and learning how different people's various I guess conditions manifest. Like some people I know, they like as many people know, I have ADHD, and Poltergeist Boy, my son, that's what we call him on stream.
Oh, that is
He also has,
wonderful.
yeah, he's a poltergeist because he unlike me, is not very quiet, and you can always hear him when you don't see him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just
And
this little
yeah,
ghost boy tossing things
uh,
around.
that's exactly him. And he's a very bubbly, warm person, and his ADHD manifests more in hyperactivity, whereas mine is more inattentive. And I've met a lot of more of the hyper sorts of ADHD folks and learned more about how they act and stuff. I'm like, okay, so this is something that's normal for that manifestation of ADHD. Cool, because sometimes my son and I's don't always they don't always mix like or match in the way they work, you know. So it's good to get that extra perspective on things.
Of course. That I think that is beautiful. It warms my heart as someone who, I have also certainly dealt within myself and with others with my own fair share of social and socializing issues, disorders. It's wonderful to hear though that this has been a a therapeutic process for you. That's very good to hear.
Definitely. And just it's nice to meet so many people who are very accepting, of trans people on the internet. um I definitely get the that dose of all them happy chemicals in my head whenever I get called momblin, obviously. So it's a nice feeling there too.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that is something I have seen time and time again, even in mainstream media outlets. They've had to acknowledge at this point that the whole VTubing scene has been a tremendous boon to so many trans people. It's absolutely wonderful that at least in one aspect, in one personification of how the world perceives you, you can suddenly have such a strong degree of control. It's
Yes.
absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I love it. Being able to, look and sound more like how I want to.
Your voice is wonderful, by the way. I
Oh,
don't
thank
know
you.
what you've done for voice training, but it's come across very well.
I have done some voice training, not as much as I'd like to, and I honestly need to practice more often.
Don't
But
we all?
I have you have a lovely voice. I have I've definitely enjoyed this sort of thing. It's been good. It's been good practice. Um, and doing the various redeems. Some people I know will often, sort of cringe at the whole, auras and whatnot, but I just consider them
Yeah.
training.
Yeah, you take what you're given. You gotta work within the framework of what you're able to do, and it's sort of like the goblin depictions in your stories. You take what you're given and you make it into something good and useful and wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I try to go for.
Oh, one question also, going back to your fictions. I Are there any particular depictions of goblins or goblinhood that you found yourself particularly drawn to in terms of positive representation of the community?
Definitely the ones in reincarnated as a slime. Those have been like those are the goblins I always point to. Despite being a villain, I always say those are the ones that I'm most closely. If you want to think of a sort of goblin archetype, that would be the one to go to, because they're people. they're not a bunch of genos. Genos is a term, or an acronym rather, that I like to use
Go
for
on.
certain types of goblins, which aren't, in my opinion, proper goblins. Geno stands for Goblin in Name Only.
Oh, I thought it was
And
in reference to the pizza.
oh no, I'm sorry. It's not. It's not any tasty pizza.
Oh,
It's
that's quite right.
But yeah, goblins in name only are what I like to call in certain very famous or infamous series, the genos in those are known for being terrible. I'm sure many of you can guess that I'm referring to, a series starring a certain Slayer. Which this is going to sound very strange. I don't actually hate the series Goblin Slayer because he's taking out the genos. It's not for everybody, and there's a lot of what questionable things in there, to say the least. But
Yeah.
there's something cathartic about seeing basically the Doom Marine knock the crap out of a bunch of, horrible genos who do horrible things. I'm just like, you know what? And the fact that the Slayer himself has certain he's a very neurodivergent person. And him taking out them genos using his hyperfixations and everything, I'm just like, you know what? I can see it. I do not recommend it to basically anybody. But the slice of life, lol. The slice of life moments are I do like those in there where it's about more laid back. I've actually heard people complain that the show wasn't edgy enough, and I'm like, nah, it's plenty edgy. The moments of peace, I think, are the most important to show what the guy's trying to protect. But
It's
yeah,
so
genos like that.
important, though, to have contrast in any sort of series, really, that's predominantly a single tone. It's like the best horror is the horror that manages to inject levity, comedy in it. The best serious media has to have moments of lightheartedness to explain why it is that it's so important, and they need to be so serious all the time. That's why I find personally, and I know a lot of people, especially in the trans community, disagree on this, but it's one of the reasons why I find the Warhammer, especially the 40,000 sort of Warhammer, all of those 40,000 Warhammers is so insufferable. It's so relentlessly, monotonely grim and miserable. You don't have any sense as to why these people want to do anything other than because they've suffered and they want to cause more suffering.
40K used to be so fun. Bait here is a huge 40K fan.
I'm terribly sorry to disappoint you.
I do have a Warhammer day, because there's so many Warhammer fans in my chat. And I do want to do something for them. But no, I understand. It's a very grimdark. I mean, they coined if I remember correctly, Warhammer coined the grimdark term, or at least popularized. Did they coin it, or did they just popularize it, Bait? I know you'll know this one, but it's not always for me. There are some bits of it I think are kind of neat, and obviously it's influenced a lot of other series. But I do like having a bit more. I guess I don't like things as heavy as that, because I'm like, IRL's already heavy enough. I'm good. In the grimdark future of the 41st millennium. Yeah, there we go.
All that's one word? They didn't even hyphenate it? Oh, God. Terrible grammar as well as a terrible philosophical tone.
And also, I think we're used as ammunition in that series.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't want to be with those poor genos over there.
Yeah. what are they? There's like a bunch of giant penicillin blobs that gained sentience, and they
Oh,
call those orcs or something. It's terrible.
I have
What
no
it's
idea.
such a disparaging look at such a wonderfully nuanced, cultured people.
Yeah, gotta remember, it was written by 3 English guys in the A's. Yeah, it checks out.
Well, that does explain all the colonialism.
You don't say. My arch nemesis, England.
Yeah, that tracks. I know what they say, you know, we all come from different worlds, from different planes of existence, different experiences. You know, one culture, one existence is evil, is another existence is good, and all of that. Perspective, sure, but I think most reasonable people can agree that colonialism is it's a pretty terrible thing. Just
I
in
may be
general.
evil, but I at least have class.
Of course, of course. Morality is a construct, but if you're building it around things like colonialism, the systems of oppression, you're building a very shitty construct. So I'll say
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Now you mentioned Warhammer. What are your hobbies in terms of things like analog games or even video games in general? What do you find yourself drawn to the most? On and off stream, let's say, since obviously a lot of people these days, they're very much everything has to be on stream, everything has to be content, but obviously you're allowed to have different interests and pursue different things on and off the screen.
Yeah, I do play quite a bit of D&D. Obviously, Zebri there is one of the party members for the campaign with Aira, the cleric, who is a bit more good than I am, obviously. And I also play an IRL D&D campaign as a human fighter named Beatrice, who is... She does her best, but she has a sense of direction that's even worse than my own somehow.
Oh,
She actually gets a debuff whenever I
oh my
specifically wrote
god.
in that she has an extra debuff for survival checks related to directions.
You know, that as an aside, that is such a underutilized things, you know. Sure, playing a character that's capable and powerful is fun, but you can also have so much fun playing a character that is just absolutely terrible at things, you know? Like, see, next time you build a character, ask your GM if you're allowed to take the lucky feat with the stipulation you're only using lucky when you roll certain successes. I can't imagine there would be any DM that would have a problem with you turning some narratively entertaining or interesting successes into potential failures.
Oh yes, it's come in clutch for Beatrice so many times because she is a constitution build primarily. She is very durable. She has book smarts, but her practical wisdom is not great. And she has another debuff to her, which can be, I guess, more of a. I'm not going to call it a complete debuff, but it's a unique condition for her called combat sadism, where
Oh?
she will not always fight efficiently. She does not do a lot of damage, but she does damage often, and since she's a battle master, she likes to use different things like pushing and tripping and using her shield a lot to sort of make the enemy's life a living hell. And if she downs you and trips you, she will stomp on you. Even if it does less damage, she will just kick you while you are down. But outside of combat, she is completely and totally sweet. It's just a little switch flips in her head, and her mother and grandmother's lessons pop up because her mother is a half goblin, her grandma is a full goblin, and her dad is a clueless but well-meaning hero originally played by my wife,
Oh,
named got his name, Sir Corrington von Humperdinck, who
fascinating.
has a terrible sense of direction too.
So what? I'm just trying to parse this out. The grandmother was 100% goblin. The
Yes.
mother was half goblin.
Mhm.
The player character Patrice is all human.
Quarter goblin, but mostly appears
Oh,
human. Yeah.
okay. Mechanically speaking, I was trying to figure out. Okay, so mathematically, was her father 200% human? Is that how
I mean,
statistics?
he is a big guy, to say the least. He's a very human. He's a very nice man compared to her. But again, I don't know. Have you ever played any of the Fire Emblem games?
I have, yes, I'm familiar with them here and there.
He's very similar to Arthur from Fire Emblem Fates. I think his name was Arthur. The big American superhero looking guy.
Interesting. I can't
Um,
say I am particularly familiar with that character, given that there's several hundred throughout the series at this point, I figure.
just imagine a big, heroic looking fellow with a giant square jaw, stuff like that.
Sort of an All Might sort of guy.
All Might with his eyes open, yes.
Oh, okay. I can picture this. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, Patrice is a little bit more chaotic than he is. And again, those little debuffs or side grades or conditions or whatever do make role playing a lot more interesting. But yeah, other than D&D, I do like to read from time to time. I do enjoy the works of George R. R. Martin. I know they have weird issues and people often complain about the slow pace, but I'm like, the dude's old and he has a lot he's working on at once, so like, give him a break.
I do have to
Um,
admire also the man how after the success of the show up to a certain point, obviously I think many
yeah,
fans will agree, didn't age well, but up to a certain point, he's just doing whatever he wants. He's having fun. He's living. He could be right and sure, but he could also be trying out this giant human-sized hamster ball, and who wouldn't want to try that instead? Let him live.
exactly. I mean, and he also did some stuff for like one of my favorite games, Elden Ring. So I mean,
Oh yeah. I do recall that. That's the reason why uh, I do say it is quite a powerful move to have all of your characters that are important have your name built into their name. Very egotistical in a way that I fully respect and understand.
but yeah, let's see. Other than reading, and the HEMA stuff I mentioned, I'm slowly getting into certain trading card games, particularly Pokemon at the moment. I
Oh.
want to pick it up and see if my kid likes it. I'm not sure if he's going to like it or not, but if not, I could just play with locals and stuff. But you know,
A
obviously,
very risky proposition, I feel like.
very
Trying
much.
to introduce one of the youths to a trading card, collectible card game seems a touch risky, especially for those children who might be a little more vulnerable to the gambling aspect of it. You know, it's definitely it's something I personally worry about a lot.
I would be monitoring such things very carefully.
Of course.
I tend to be pretty good about monitoring certain things. Like, I don't vet every single TV show, and maybe I should, but like, I do try to allow him a certain amount of freedom. He's a middle schooler. I'm fine with saying that much. And I like to give them a certain amount of freedom, but I also do like to double check things from time to time to make sure, it's not, utter, like teaching them something terrible. Hello there, Eggy.
Oh,
Welcome.
hello, J Deggy. Come on in, make yourselves comfortable.
But for things like the card game, I'm definitely going to be, keeping a good eye on him when we do it, try it out. And if he gets into it, there's the app that does not allow for, if I remember correctly, does not allow for financial purchases, which is good.
Good.
And
Also, if you are gonna do it in terms of actual physical things, why not just print your own cards off? Download the little JPEGs of PNGs, just put them on some printed paper, put that on some card stock. Bingo, bango, you got a deck that has a bunch of cards that could have been worth hundreds, and you got them for the price of ink.
honestly, though, that might cost more given
Oh,
how inky pricey.
oh yeah, that is very true. I
So
hadn't
the app
considered
is
that.
fine for me. Yeah, the app is fine for us, and if I have a lot of the old cards too, so we can use those for fun if we're just playing by ourselves. But yeah, that's something I'm into. Drawing, obviously, I do that on and off stream, and like I'm looking into different hobbies here in the near future. I want to get back into archery. I used to be really into that. Um, I enjoy I enjoyed it quite a lot when I used to do that
Oh,
back in
that's
like my early
wonderful.
20s and teen years.
You know,
Uh,
I've been told by Beatrix that she was very, very passionately interested in archery when she was just a tiny little tot, and ended up having to sort of abandon it since it wasn't exactly the most accessible hobby, given the necessity for not just the equipment but also the proper venue. But
yeah,
recently rediscovered, oh my god, this is actually a lot of fun.
it really is. Um, I occasionally I think I did some. I think either earlier this year, and I know definitely last year. Um, I did some, and it was a good time. And one of my friends, she also actually two of my friends are qualified archery instructors, and they're often talking about it, and it just makes me want to get back into it. I also do want to try crossbows one of these days for fun. I do enjoy, target practice, stuff like that. I have a lot of fun with that. I'm not as big into firearms, that's not really my thing. I know the,
Doesn't require as much skill to get the same amount of interest in marksmanship. Understandable.
yeah, it's a lot of fun doing archery things. Though, like I do miss it. I still the muscle memory is still there to a degree, even though if I've not practiced as much as I want to. Um,
That would also, I bet, and
remember,
this is free material for you, but I bet if you were to mount one of those little cameras onto the bow or the crossbow, that would actually make for some very interesting streaming material. You don't often get the a camera angle of the aiming down the sights, so to speak.
I have actually considered that. Um, and I think in the future it could be fun. I do want to I will probably be doing a sword related thing before then at some point. I'm hoping next year. I do want
Oh.
to visit a friend of mine
You're gonna do
who
one of those little body cameras on you and go at it?
if I can go there, leaving post. I do like the exercise from Napoleon, but I do want to do some sort of comparative swords, sword work with a friend of mine who um has lots of experience in kendo, and I want to compare, the stuff I've learned from longsword and the European swordsmanship with her knowledge of Japanese swordsmanship, and sort of do a
Interesting.
comparative thing if we get the chance to do that.
So how do you think that would work? Like, obviously, there's a certain amount of overlap. Granted,
Oh,
you both are
definitely.
wielding something long with two hands, most likely, and whacking it against the other person's long two-handed thing. But how would that work in terms of the rule system? Because I know informal duel sort of environments that kendo is like a very rigidly formalized sort of duel. You gotta call your shots, so to speak.
Yeah, we still need to work out some ideas and plan the actual trip and everything since we live on opposite sides of the country.
Unfortunate.
Unfortunate indeed, but we might have something a little bit closer to how a lot of HEMA things do it, or even how the LED saber, don't sue us Disney, um, folks do theirs, which is I think a good mix between like fencing, kendo, and how HEMA works, where you don't have to call your shot, but like as soon as you get hit, there's a chance for an afterblow, which is like an attack that hits if you're not fast enough to block or retreat um, after striking, and sort of score something similar. That's the idea I'm having, and I'll discuss it more with her, obviously. But I think something along those lines would be pretty good. And also, we'd probably discuss the whole, I guess, similarities in techniques and the differences, obviously, because like one of the big differences that you're going to see between long swords and a katana are the handguards. With a long sword, you're going to have that. You're not going to have a disc guard like with a katana. You're going to have the quillins or whatever, and it's going to be a little bit different for like how I do an overhead guard compared to how she would do one, because like her overhead guard, might be a little bit closer to her head, whereas mine is going to be sort of higher up or more to the side, which is the sort I go for. I go for more of a sideways overhead guard, so that the cross guard doesn't bonk me on the head. And there was actually a relatively recent video of a kenjutsu master who has no experience with longsword, but he picked one up and was able to utilize a lot of his techniques with it, and found a lot to like about it. With all the differences, the pommel on the end being a good sort of stopping point for certain, so your hands don't slide off it as easily. Using the cross guard to sort of help with binding and winding with the sword, and just how long the damn things are typically. It's like katanas aren't stubby little blades by any stretch of the imagination, but a long sword's a long sword.
Of
And
course.
it has a lot of reach to it. And the Kenjutsu master was like really impressed with how it worked. And honestly, just seeing like a lot of the HEMA community just being like, whoa, this is so exciting. Like there was a lot of really wholesome interactions between the various sword communities there. And I really like that sort of thing because, again, I'm all about sort of coming together and learning from each other, that sort of vibe. And I like how a lot of that happens. And the capacity to end them rightly, of course. We cannot forget ending people rightly with the longsword.
Now, what
The pommel.
exactly does that mean for
Yes.
those of you and myself, of course, that don't understand the terminology of the science of the duel?
So, to end somebody rightly is it's a bit of a meme in the HEMA community. A long sword has a pommel. A lot of times you can unscrew this pommel. And there was a dueling, I guess, like manual or manuscript where it showed some certain techniques, and one of the techniques was unscrewing the pommel of your longsword, chucking the damn thing as fast as you could at your enemy, and then rushing in to end them rightly. And it's sort of just become like throwing the pommel at somebody is ending them rightly. And I'm just like, it's so fucking wacky. I love it.
That is incredible. I love how there has always been the school of formalized dueling and the school of I just need this person taken out as smoothly and quickly as possible. So you know what? You know what? I am going to just hurl an object at them and then just bum rush the poor sap.
I mean, yeah, it's here's the actual here's the let me send it to you real quick, the image. And it's become a meme. It's even popped up in popular video games like Mordhau, which is a I guess HEMA based fighting game, fencing game, I guess. And there's just something amusing about that idea about just throwing a pommel at somebody and just rushing the poor motherfucker who just like, what did you do? Why did you do that? What?
You know, I don't often have reason to quote the work of Mike Myers, but it really is one of those moments of, did you just throw a shoe at me? What
Yeah,
what are you doing? You're stunned to speechlessness by the sheer audacity of it.
yes, it's literally just a way to style on somebody. Um and I love that.
Oh, sometimes you're doing a coup de grace, sometimes you're doing a coup de go fuck yourself. I'm gonna make this as humiliating and ungraceful as possible.
Exactly.
Or
How
throwing a pommel a martial art. Hey, as long as it works. Very
exactly.
true. Very
I love
true.
that sort of thing. But yeah. That's yeah, a lot of my hobbies do sort of aim towards I guess medieval or Renaissance sort of things. Um Surprisingly, I've only ever went to one Renaissance fair, and that was earlier this
Really?
year. Yeah,
Oh, how did you
good time.
find it?
I loved it. I really enjoyed, the atmosphere and vibes. Saw some pretty cool stunt shows and everything. Walked around, a lot. Inexplicably saw Genshin Impact characters for some reason, but I just rolled with it.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
and yeah, it was such a good time. I really enjoyed the environment so much. I want to go back when I get the chance to, and maybe next time I can go in, some sort of outfit.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean I imagine as someone who's something of an enthusiast of the time period, you must have something to wear.
Not yet, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, I want to get something to wear that would work well for me, but it's gonna be a little bit pricey. I'm not exactly a seamstress, and the seamstress I know currently is like really far from me, and it would take a very long time to get to her. She's the one who made my old Jedi robes and Sith robes a long time ago, as well as my Toho cosplay. Um, but yeah, like I don't. The last time I tried sewing a costume for myself, which was a medieval monk's habit when I was younger, for a very weird fair we did in 10th grade, I think.
Okay.
Um,
Was
we
this
had to
at
have a
like some
choir.
sort of religious school or
It was at a religious school,
that would
and our
explain it. Okay.
yeah. Well, the thing is, too, our teacher, like, none of us were Catholic. Like, at least in that, I think maybe we had one or two Catholics in the school or in the class, but like, it was the teacher's supposedly historically accurate priory or whatever that we had to have, and I tended the grounds and helped the other guy to remember his lines.
Of
But
course.
the first time I sewed the monk's habit together, I didn't do it right and it exploded. The second time it was
It
very uneven, but it worked.
exploded.
I put it on because I traced my outline or had it traced, but I didn't make it big enough. So when I put it on, basically just like all the strings popped and everything was like, oh crap. So I remade it. And it worked better the next time, but it was also just like, I never want to do this again. I am not a I do not sew, and I think I had to sew a lot of that by hand, if I remember correctly. And that was a pain. I might have had some sewing machine assistance, but I think a lot of it was by hand, if I'm remembering right.
Well,
10th grade was a weird time.
one thing that I have been told from experience is that if you want to get something to wear at the Renaissance Fair, one of the best places is apparently just thrift stores.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah, you can very easily find a bunch of very dated clothes that, you throw them together with the right thing or two, you can make something pretty good looking.
Yeah, I could probably pull off some anachronistic pirate vibe if I try, and I might do that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Not to mention also, I imagine if you were to take this to Hema, it would give you a very powerful advantage. Having blunderbusses and
Oh,
pistoliers when everyone else is bringing a sword to the fight.
that would be I would get banned, but hey, it'd be stylish.
I mean, you don't actually load the guns.
No, of course not. But yeah, it would be I always wondered how something like that would work, but I think ending them rightly would be our best projectile weapon.
Have you ever done that in a actual HEMA environment?
I've not, considering that it's a hunk of metal. No, I'm not insane. I think
What
I've,
would the Botha equivalent to that be?
I guess maybe like a ball of duct tape or something in foam. Um, I would consider I might do that. Like just that could be a comedic, at least choreographed thing. I think. Um, because it's hard to choreo. It is hard to do that safely, especially with an audience. Circling the ring and whatnot. Well, not real circling it super close, but like it. That would be a bit of a safety issue, especially if I missed. And then of course the sword itself would start to fall apart. So it's one of those like it'd be very difficult to do safely. And while I may be a monster, I am not that kind of monster. I don't want to hurt the crowd unless I'm doing something to purposely make them cringe.
Understandable. Understandable. Looks like we have a few other clips lined up here, so I'm going to just cut over there.
Okay.
See. Oh. It's off center again.
Oh God, oh, I remember this one.
Oh?
Yeah, this was this is a reward for my first subathon. I was attempting to beat Dark Souls 2 in one day. It did not go well.
Oh! Now, are you someone who is particularly familiar with, what do they call it? Speed running technology? No, not
Nope.
technologies, technique. Oh,
Nope.
so this was completely unprepared for. This was. Oh my god, that sounds terrible.
It
Let's
was great
watch.
though.
Let's watch. Oh. Oh, there's certainly something there. What do we go? Hello? Oh my god, oh dear.
That was pretty fucking funny.
Oh dear. Yeah, there's just no stopping those ones.
Yeah, they were relentless.
I know that there's quite a few. Oh, there are quite a few
that was
enemies in
pretty
those
fucking
games. You
funny.
could probably stop that way, though. There's some very, very big, very rude men.
Oh yeah. I just still love the fact that my character is
that
still
was
calmly
pretty
stuck in that
fucking funny.
animation of closing the door and it's just like, nope, never mind, we're good.
Understandable. Honestly, understandable. Is this still your preferred playstyle of the Soulsborne games?
Sort of just taking my time and going through it.
Oh, I was gonna say playing it in a singular day, but
Oh no, definitely not. Most of the time I like to sort of take my time, explore. Um like even like I think the fastest time I've ever beaten one of these games, and that's using exploits, because I do know one or two speedrun tricks for Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne. Um but even then, those still take me like 15 to 16 hours to beat. And so those are very long streams. I take breaks, every I think back then I took breaks every 2 hours. Um, but I do a lot of themed runs. That's one of my big things is themed runs or mild challenges.
so you did mention that earlier. Let's go back to that for a moment. What sorts of examples can you give of these? What makes for a mild challenge for you? What makes for a themed run?
Okay, so the easier to explain one is a themed run. I basically take a character idea, and this is something that's pretty popular, especially with like streamers like Tulak the Barbarian and whatnot. But basically you take a character concept. For instance, we can go with um let me think of a character we can talk about here that would be pretty popular for somebody. Let's go with Link from Legend of Zelda. Let's say we want to make a Link build. So we look at, some of his most popular weapons and items throughout the series. Oh yeah, Chirino, that's one from Toho. Um
Yeah,
that little
I
character
played
there.
that Cherno is a rather important
Oh,
character to
she is.
you.
She is. Yeah, let's talk about Chirino then. She is an ice fairy from the Toho project. As you can see her little emote bouncing on the screen, that's her there. Um, and so for Elden Ring, with what we're doing with that, I made a character that's using nothing but ice themed weaponry and magic, even if an enemy is resisting to it. Um, she just keep blasting. She is not very bright. In D&D terms, she has 9 int, and that's sort of where my whole 9 int joke comes from.
Oh,
Um,
see,
it's
I
it's
see.
based on her, because in the manual for the ninth Toho game, when the creator of of the Toho project is like listing things in the manual, number 9 was labeled idiot, and it was her.
Oh my god.
And that's sort of stuck around, and it's become a meme. That's why the 9-month subscriber badge on my channel is a 9 ball from Pool, because she's often referred to as a 9 ball.
Oh my god.
So yeah, we I can actually grab a clip of hers. Like I don't think I showed one of the clips, but like her build has been so much fun to play. But that's just one of the ideas of a themed build is you stick with something that character would use if the character was in that land. Here's an example. I'll send it to you right there. That's an example of one of my themed
Take
builds.
a look at this. All right.
Oh my god. Get over here.
Oh, look at it. Oh dear. Looks like we're disconnecting from OBS. Wonderful.
Oh.
All right. The
Did the
internet provider likes to be a real wise guy
Okay.
sometimes. I've been
There we
trying
go.
to deal with those terrible, terrible savers, but, I don't really know anything about this fakakta technology, so it is what it is, I guess. Welcome back to the show. Terribly sorry about the, little improvised break there.
Yeah.
Now then, leave.
But yeah, this is probably this is 1 second. Excuse me. This dude's has a very chunky health bar, but just with this ice build I had with Chirino there,
Oh my god, we
we almost
him.
one-cycled him.
We almost
Incredible.
one-cycled Radon.
Like the other characters there that we summoned didn't really do all that much, but like our frost stuff just like
Holy
completely
shit.
and utterly wrecked his health bar. And then we just have to basically poke him because our sword there, as you see, has a little projectile attack. And then I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot him. I'm here to win.
Really, it worked out wonderfully.
What's a Toho character without some bullet hell spam, right?
You know, that's very true. That does seem to be something of its defining feature as a genre.
Oh, certainly. I'm also very happy with my little outfit there. My
It
little
is a
tribute and cosplay
darling
to her.
outfit, absolutely. You should be. So, were you able to take this build all the way?
We didn't get to finish it that day, unfortunately, because it was a 9-hour stream from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Of course.
But we got pretty far, and we actually continue it on, at least when my computer's working, on Tuesdays, and when I get the new computer in soon, it's going to be back on our Toho Tuesdays.
Oh, so you're continuing on with it. That's wonderful.
Oh yeah, it's probably been one of the most fun runs I've ever done, because she's just blasting. You see her; she's doing her best.
That's fantastic.
That has to have been the fastest Radon fight I have.
Yeah, that's an idea of one of the themed runs. And for mild challenges, I think one of the best ways to show my mild challenges, I can actually pull up the rules for it real quick.
Right.
I have a there it is. I call the post-Calamity Zelda games, which is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, Breath
Those
of
are
the
the rules
Wild.
I have for the mild challenge.
Alright. This is a simple challenge, our usual way of playing the post-Calamity Zelda games. 3 potions per combat, flight or climbing events, none during swimming. 2. Teleportation is limited to towers and special non-shrine warp points. 1 per in-game day. No eating or changing armor during combat. Flight, climbing, or swimming. 1 manual save per in-game day. It must be at a campfire, pot, or inn.
Yeah. So you can't just cram apples down your throat in the middle of a combat thing like you can in Skyrim. I mean, you could, but I don't have it that way because I like to make it a little bit more, slightly more difficult, but not to the point of like face-meltingly difficult. And it made me really, a lot of common sense limitations. It made me really appreciate the game systems more. It made me actively make potions, which is something I completely ignored in my early playthroughs of Breath of the Wild.
I didn't even realize you could. I just thought you were only able to cook food.
Yeah, an NPC actually explains it to you pretty early on, but you have to like actively go out of your way to talk to all the NPCs. And she's like, this is how you make potions. And this made me actively hunt down and search for ingredients. And since I was playing on Master Mode, which is, the spicier difficulty there, it was tough. But, right here, as you can see by this clip that's like in the background now, I managed to make it through Breath of the Wild with those limitations and had a little fun at the end.
Well, let's take a look at that clip then.
Playing with mods, obviously.
Yeah, this is a little different than what I remember Link looking at.
It's me, princess. Oh, that was a good one.
That was! You managed to hold that note for so long.
It's not even my longest one I've done before, but sometimes it cuts out.
Oh?
Yeah, but that's one of my favorite things on the stream sometimes is that little redeem, the excuse me princess redeem.
Well, excuse
where did that in-joke come from within your community? Obviously, I'm aware of the large meme that it references, but
honestly, it was just me shoehorning it into Breath of the Wild playthrough. I'm just like, every time Zelda says something or whatever that might be a little bit harsh, I'm just gonna, do what cartoon Link would. Or at other times, whenever certain elvish princesses who happen to be royal knights named Yulia pop up and say something, I might, ask to be excused.
Understandable, understandable. Now, also, something I wanted to cycle back to here. You can see it just in the lower bar here, the karaoke stream incentive.
Yep, that's gonna happen for my re-debut and everything.
So, why exactly is karaoke such a touchy point for ya?
I don't particularly like singing in front of a group of people because, like, I'm kind of a perfectionist at times. And if I don't sound like, I know karaoke is just supposed to be for fun, and like, if it's a song I know well, I'm okay. But like the technical aspect of getting the sound to be synced properly, not letting my nerves get to me, it's a very difficult thing for me to do. But I promised it. There's a I don't have it on my channel at the moment, but there was a clip of where I said, look, if you all get me to this thing, I'll do my first karaoke stream. And that happened. I'm like, okay, fine. If you get to this next thing, I'll do it. And it happened.
Once she gets
I'll
going,
think
it
about it.
goes very well.
I suppose for more songs that are a bit lower pitched, I can do it. I can't sing in a super feminine voice just yet, as much as I'd like to. But I can sing occasional things, and especially like older, like sea shanties or work songs, I can do fine, I suppose.
Well, I think you might be being a bit hard on yourself. The idea that there are certain ways to sing that are exclusive to being perceived as woman, that doesn't really hold true, I would say. Yeah,
Yes.
metal is a great example of that genre. It's a very androgynous sounds in musical, sounds.
Yeah, and I've been practicing off stream a lot, and occasionally on stream, to sort of get more into that. But yeah, whenever Rules of Nature comes up on my streams, I kind of sing along with it.
Is
From
that
Metal Gear
something that
Rising.
happens frequently?
Not as frequently as you might think, but it does pop up enough times to where regulars have heard me sing Rules of Nature at least more than once, especially even on other streams, like my Dragon Boss's stream, Tiali.
Your dragon
I,
boss?
yes, I have one of my biggest influences in streaming is a dragon VTuber named Tiali, who she and her community are honestly some of the main reasons I am streaming at all. She means a lot to me, and she and her staff like encouraged me very early on. Like I was originally going to use a lot of and there's nothing wrong with this, but I was originally going to use like heavy voice distortion and whatnot. But like they're like, no, just go with your normal voice. It sounds good. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, go for it. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And here I am.
And they were right.
Thank you. And yeah, they've been a huge support to me. But occasionally we did like a sort of joke karaoke thing at one point, and I sang Rules of Nature on there. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. That song especially, since you can just sort of let yourself go with it, I guess. You just sort of go a little bit angry and edgy with it. It's a lot of fun. And what's it called? The Only Thing I Know for Real. I think that was the other one I sang on. That might have been the one I sang on that one. But basically,
Yeah, I've
Metal Gear
heard
Rising
about that
soundtrack.
one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've heard a lot of things, but the only thing I know for real is apparently there will be blood shed. There's a man in the
Indeed.
mirror. He's nodding his head. I don't know why.
Somehow Michael Jackson popped up there. We don't know. He's traveling from the mirror world or something. It's a whole thing.
Of course, of course. Oh, luckily for you, we happen to have Mr. Raiden Revengeance on today, live, to sing a karaoke cover of his famous song, Rules of Nature. No, I can't afford that. You know how much money it would take to hire a twink like that? He gets so much work
Probably a
these
lot. Probably a
days.
lot. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my old 3 model terrible cosplay. I I don't have the clip on my channel anymore. I need to upload it at some point, but I did have a terrible cosplay of him, complete with a poster board of a sombrero because he has that sombrero
Incredible.
costume.
Yeah, ain't that his disguise for when he's visiting Mexico or
It's
something?
his, yes, it's his completely normal disguise.
Incredible.
I kept it on the entire game.
Ain't it like people even comment on it in that one stage in Mexico? Like,
Yeah,
what
they're
is
just
he
like,
wearing?
bro, what the fuck are you doing?
This quaked up white boy coming in here with his robot body trying to disguise it with a sombrero. What are you doing? You look ridiculous.
It has very Como Te Llamas vibes to it, you know? Grassy ass.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. That is a man I would share a quesadilla with.
Quasadilla, get it right.
Quesadilla, my apologies. He canonically wears it for like 30 seconds from the car to the sewer, and everyone he sees just stares at him. It is very inconspicuous, of course. Why wouldn't he do that?
Look, a badass poncho and a big hat. I'm all about them big hats. I'm not wearing one right now, but I love me some big hats.
Oh, totally understandable. And if this was a different genre that very frequently takes place in places like Mexico, a poncho and a big hat would be perfectly acceptable attire.
Honestly, like, I wonder if there's any wandering swordsman with a poncho and a big hat stories in Mexico. Probably. I have to look into it.
Oh,
It's so noticeable.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you got characters like Zorro out there.
Exactly.
That's essentially that. It's reverse psychology. He's so noticeable that no one will think he's trying not to be noticed. Oh, you
I
mean
mean,
like when you wear a high visibility vest when you're trying to burglarize someone's house? Okay, I understand.
it's the Robin effect, you know?
Of course. Totally reasonable. Oh, going off of that, talking about your inspiring forces. What are some of the things that made you decide to get into this? In addition to people like Tiali, who do you most ascribe your initial push to engage in this sort of work, and then the continued follow through? Are there any sort of people that you would credit that to?
Like my influences as, like, I guess an entertainer or something.
Yeah, both like in terms of your style, things that you sort of emulate or try to evoke on stream, the people you look up to. It could be the people that have provided you with particular support or encouragement one way or another, like the Tiali lady that you mentioned there.
All right, in terms of, I don't know this person personally, right? But in terms of influences on style, at least in the sense of complete and utter sass, Jack Douglas from Jack's Films has been, I think, consistently my favorite YouTuber since, like, oh, geez, for a long time. And he is known for being a very, like, big on parodies and other things like that, and also just being full of sass, and I love that. And I often will have moments where I'm sassing people on stream, whether I am in chat or talking to them directly. And so that's been a big influence there. For streamers, again, excuse me, I didn't watched too many streamers or VTubers before I became a VTuber myself, and even nowadays I I lurk a lot, but I watch a lot of like what I like to call locally grown craft brewed indie VTubers.
Understandable. I
And
mean,
there's so many of them, yeah.
there's nothing I have against the big names. It's not a matter of being envious or at all sort of at all sort of hostile to those who have perceived to have made it big. That
Yeah.
it's not that. It's just a matter of if you're gonna be interacting, if you're gonna be spending your times, wouldn't it be better to just do it with people who you could actually, have a conversation with?
Yeah, that's what I like about a lot of indie spaces. And I'm also kind of just a massive hipster, I'm not gonna lie. um,
Understandable.
um, I so like obviously like I mentioned Tiale there, and a lot of other streamers I watched early on, um, sort of had a lot of influence, like My Moon, um, and the one who actually taught me about Vroid in the first place, Sarah, who was an old friend from back when I was pre-Goblin Roselia, but still Roselia. Because I actually had an online presence before I was a Goblin Paladin. Um, like I just sort of those vibes, sort of more chill, relaxed vibes. Because like before that, I kind of used to think that every VTuber had to be like really, really super over the top energetic, and they both have their moments of energy and whatnot, or all three of them have their moments of energy, but like they're all also very cozy and sort of chill vibes, even if they're not always doing cozy, chill things in game. And then they'll, have their moments of like, of just like intense, like what the fuck or something similar.
Mm.
And I'm like, that's more my level. I can relate to that a lot easier. Um, Mostly cozy with occasional moments of chaos. Not chaotic all the time, because again, there's nothing wrong with chaotic all the time, but like that's just not how I naturally am.
Oh yeah,
I'm
it
a
can
bit
be
more low
really
key and quiet.
exhausting.
Yeah. And I was just like, I can do this. I can do a more chill, low key vibe sort of stream. I mean, I don't even always tweet when I'm going live because sometimes I just want a nice chill time. If you pop up, and that's cool. Should I be probably doing more to promote myself? Yes, it's my job. It's my literal job, and so I should
It
be.
wouldn't hurt, I
It wouldn't
suppose.
hurt. I'm going to be doing that more and more, but like, I do also value the just sort of, hey, come on into my living room, sit down, I'll play some video games for you, and you can just, or draw something for you or whatever, and have a good time. Just chill out with me. I want to give that sort of, watching your parents play a video game moment. Like, some people might have memories of that from when they were kids. Like, I used to watch my dad play, like, Contra or Siphon Filter when I was a kid. Or like your older sister or whatever, older brothers playing a video game while you're watching, even, or like older friends or something. That's the sort of vibe I'm going for. This is
Sure.
sort of, sort of a cozy space where you can just sort of chill, be yourself, and keep the vibes nice and chill. That's one of the things I like the most. Like, I wouldn't, I don't particularly specialize in cozy games per se, but I try to make the games I'm playing feel cozy, if that makes sense.
I
Like,
think so.
I think I can pull off even making like, maybe it's maybe it's how I view it myself, but I think like I can make even things like Elden Ring feel cozy because like I sort of take it nice and chill. I'm generally speaking, just sort of going through the game, relatively well. I'm not amazing at the game or whatever, but like I think I know enough to sort of get through it while talking to the chat pretty well.
Oh, for
And
sure. Like,
with, with you, yeah.
having a skill level to some degree is certainly a very important part of being able to do these games and make it feel not low effort per se, but effortless to a degree, perhaps.
Yeah, and I struggle in some points, but I try not to get too ragey about it. 'Cause that's another thing I like to focus on in my streams is making sure I don't rage because I want to, also sort of. I'm not sure if setting the example is the right word to use, but I guess that's the closest I can use. Is like I want to, make sure people know that they don't have to rage at their games, or if they feel like they're about to rage, it's a game. You're supposed to be having fun. If you need to take a break, take a break. So sometimes if I feel like I'm getting ragey at a game, I will stop playing the game. I'll say, you know what? I need a break. I clearly communicate that and say, hey, I think I need to stop and do something else because I don't want to be angry on stream. Sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable, and it's different. It differs for other people, but sometimes I get a little uncomfortable when people are like angry on stream, even if it's at a game. They're not angry at me or anything, and they're understandably frustrated. Um, for instance, like the Godskin duo in Elden Ring. Honestly, some of the most aggravating bosses in history.
Mm.
I understand getting pissed off at them, but sometimes I'm like, if I'm feeling that angry, I think it's best for me to step back, take a break, do something else. And also my general, way I do my breaks every hour most of the time. Like right now, since I'm not actively streaming, I'm pretty much fine. I slept before before popping up on stream
Well,
here.
good. All that
And
going on in your life, you really do need to be taking care of yourself. And it's
yeah.
so important to set healthy boundaries like you've been doing with making sure that you're only in the correct headspace to really be able to provide that positive sort of experience that you're looking to share.
Yeah, and I want other, streamers to know that, it's important to take care of yourself. I mean, you're a person. Like, be you Goblin or Slime or, horrifying devil from the 12th dimension of torment or whatever. Like, you're still a person. Maybe not a human, but a person. And as a person, you got to take care of yourself. And, I think reminding people of that's very important because we only have a finite amount of resources at our disposal. And, with how many of us are neurodivergent in the community, it's important to also remember that. Because I often see streamers sort of worryingly overdo it. And they will go a long time without eating or taking a break to get some food or use the bathroom or whatever. They're not, and they feel that they have to keep going. They have to keep doing that. And I say, no, they don't need to do that. I think you need to go and take care of yourself. It's an important part. And having that get more normalized, I think, is going to be very healthy, I think, for other, yeah, burnout doesn't wait. Exactly. You have to take good care of yourself. Otherwise, like, who else is going to?
Very good point. Very
You
good
have
point.
family and friends, but you're not going to, like, in the end, the person who's going to take care of you the best is you. Obviously, given that you're able to, exceptions do apply, but like generally speaking, if you're streaming, you have at least some control over certain aspects. And again, just breaks, taking care of yourself, and knowing when something is too much for you is important. Now, I'm not saying that pushing yourself occasionally is a bad thing. I do it from time to time, but you gotta have it in moderation.
Yeah.
That's my little mom soapbox there for a moment. I try to tell that to my kid too. To moderate yourself if you're not having fun in the game. Take a break.
That's also a very good segue. Oh, Are there any things in particular that if someone were to come to you looking for advice in times, let's say in times of the work that you do, that is to say, streaming, that is to say, creative, artistic endeavors, is there anything in particular, in addendum to what's already been mentioned in the previous point, that you would say is a particular must know sort of advice? Like if someone new to any of those fields, a fledgling, what would your advice be for them?
I think number one, do not be afraid to set boundaries with your chat. And don't be afraid to voice said boundaries. Even if people, I think, might get uppity about it sometimes, like, this is your space. If somebody's going to come in being rude or even quote unquote playfully rude, but you're not comfortable with it and they keep it up, man their ass. They're all they're doing is making you feel uncomfortable and possibly making chat feel uncomfortable too. If they're not going to respect you asking them to stop, do not be afraid to swing the hammer. You gotta, show that you respect your own time and your own space, and that's a good way to do it. So don't be afraid of the hammer. Another one I think is if you are a person that forgets things often, have a nice consolidated self-care routine. And this is a personal preference thing of mine, but I like to have my hydrate, stretch, and posture check all bundled up into one.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it actually makes it a little bit cleaner for the mods who are cleaning up the redeems in the mod view as well. But that's one that that's advice I like to give to everybody. I think it bundles things very nicely together and makes it very clean for your redeems, so you have more space for other things. Because like a lot of times if you're going to stretch, you might as well posture check anyway.
Of course.
And if you're taking a break to stretch, you might as well, after you're done stretching or before you're stretching, get a sip of water. And that rolls into the next part. Take breaks. Even if it's not every hour, every 2 hours, at the very least, take a short break. You don't have infinite stamina, but you got to get up and walk away, look away from the screens for a few minutes at least. Go take a piss or something. Get a snack. And just do a few things that are a little bit different from what you're already doing. Like on my breaks, for my hourly breaks, I will run an ad, which is also, I think, one of the best times to run an ad is when you are not there streaming.
Of course.
I hate pre-roll, but I fight it every hour as best as I can. So I stand up, and again, this is mostly for me, but this is just like if you're asking specifically for the Roselia method, I guess. But I stand up, I get out of my office, I go, say hi to my wife and kid, go use the bathroom, stretch out, get a snack or whatever, and just take a few moments away. And every few hours, I'll take a slightly longer break to get a snack or do whatever needs to be done. And that has helped me, not as much recently due to my computer problems, but I kind of am known for being able to do longer streams relatively easily because I take regular breaks. I can easily do, and if my computer's working properly and I have the time, 8-hour streams like nothing, because I constantly take breaks. And I will even take a longer break for lunch, because I'm not going to starve myself for a stream. It's work, and work shouldn't be harming you. If you're being forced to work, you need to at least take care of yourself during it. And that's something I think more jobs need to take care of their workers anyway, but that's a whole different thing right now. But
it's
if you're
very much the sort of
yeah.
thing that we're saying all of this in times of You don't always have the most choice when it comes to this. We
Yeah.
understand that. This is a world where, capitalism is it's a terrible thing that forces people to do often things that they can't or don't want to do, which is why it's so important when you do have some sort of control over your life, like for instance, in terms of your online presence, to be able to do all of this sort of thing.
It's super important. And I think that, I encourage any streamers out there who might be watching, take regular breaks. Even if you're in the middle of something, if you can pause, pause. Try to take a break. Take care of yourself. Your body and your mind are going to thank you, and your chat's going to hopefully want you to take good care of yourself too. And if anything, your Momblin here, hi, wants you to take good care of yourselves too. So please, keep that in mind. For another thing, I guess, even if you can't stick to a schedule, at least stick to a vibe. As best as you can. You're not always going to be able to hit the same vibes as always, but don't try to force yourself to be something you're not, I guess. I'm fine with occasionally doing some very mildly spicy things. We're talking Tabasco level at most. And I always have a disclaimer that pops up, voiced and with a sound redeem voiced by Mr. Live Bait there himself. Thank you, Bait.
Oh.
That reminds you to read the disclaimer, which says, part of the boundaries thing too, but it shows that, even if I'm doing a redeem that's, very up close and personal or whatever, it's still, this is performative. This is for fun. This is not my normal vibe. I'm not, a particularly flirty streamer or anything like that. Excuse me.
Of course.
So even if I'm doing something that's very much, oh, hello there, dears. It's so good to hear you. Or whatever, it's it's not a
That was certainly something, though.
Yeah, I get that.
Oh my god.
It's it's performance, it's acting. So I like to, just remind folks maybe for a redeem or two, if you want to do something that's a little bit out of character, go for it. But don't force yourself to constantly make yourself uncomfortable. It's not healthy for you. It's going to make you feel bad if you overdo it, and it'll stress you out, and there's already enough stress in the world. Now, if you can handle certain amounts of it, go for it. That's fine. Just make sure to take care of yourself after the fact, I'm very much about
it's also
self-care.
sort of a thing, though, where, not only is it good for in terms of setting comfortable boundaries and being able to stick with them and making sure you're able to produce an environment that's comfortable for others to be in, but also just in terms of, it makes sense from a business perspective. If you're trying to run this as a business, or if you're trying to run this in terms of something more dedicated, perhaps, than just a way to pass the time as a hobby, it really is very valuable to be able to create a niche for yourself, something that even if it might not be what you're consistently doing all the time, it's consistent enough that when people see you, they can say, oh, this is so-and-so. I know that they're gonna be doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, this is the streamer that always does these FPS games. I know if I go over there, I'll be able to see some sort of new FPS that I'm not familiar with, or something like that.
Yeah. And that's why I like to do, I want to be known as, and I think I'm getting there. Maybe for the folks who do know me, I'm sort of the cozy mom streamer who plays a lot of Souls-likes.
And that seems like a wonderful niche to fill in this sort of day and era.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. I do a few other things that I mention during my little, whenever somebody raids me sort of thing. I talk about, Resident Evil, Zelda, Toho Project, Souls, or FromSoft games and whatnot. But like, I like to, make sure folks that know for sure that I have a niche that I like to go into because it's things I like to do. And while I'll occasionally branch out, because I'm technically a variety streamer, and I'll do other things occasionally, most of the content you're going to see with me is going to be within that sort of, I guess, bubble of some sort of custom character made action game, or the other genres of the other things I mentioned a lot. And I guess it's just part of my identity. And even without the games, my identity is still going to be mostly Cozy Mom does things with you, or you can watch Cozy Mom do things.
Yeah, that's wonderful sounding. All right, so let's see. Just as a reminder, chat, if anyone would like to have any questions in particular answered, at any point you may post them, and we will do due diligence to be able to answer them all. So thank you all very much. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. I hope you all enjoying yourselves.
Yes, indeed. Please, if you have questions, this is a good time to ask them.
So one of the ones, go on, do.
Oh no, I'm using filler words. That happens too often for me. But go on.
Oh, all right. So, one of the things that I'm always interested in, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes people come into this field knowing right away, I am going to be 100% honest. I am going to be my true, authentic goblin self. But oftentimes, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Maybe there's something else that they've been working on for a while, or maybe there's a different aspect of themselves that they want to be able to highlight. So, I suppose my next question for you is, if you weren't a goblin, what do you think you would have been drawn to?
If I wasn't a goblin, or I guess an oni.
Of course.
I'm just gonna count both of those out there.
The broad the broad umbrella of these small to largish green colored beings with pointy ears, sometimes horns, plenty of sharp teeth. It's a spectrum.
Indeed, I might have been, and it's a bit of a wide spectrum. Speaking of spectrums, I might have been either a bear, a tanuki, a drider,
Ooh.
or just a straight up spider, perhaps.
Like, are you talking about a anthropomorphized spider, or so I'm a spider, so what kind of spider?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I see what you're getting at here.
So, to sort of build on that spider thing itself, and I do understand people have arachnophobia. I'm not going to show any spider images or anything, but I'm trying to, I guess, reconnect with a lot of my own cultural heritage. At least in my human disguise. And one of the biggest things from various, for folks who don't know, I am half Jamaican, and a lot of the African descendants in Jamaica come from the Ashanti people, and one of the big figures important to the Ashanti people is Anansi, the spider, who you might hear be referred to as Aunt Nancy and some other terms and whatnot, who is a trickster and a storyteller, a weaver of tales. And spiders have been a pretty important part of my life in one way or another. Like, my mother used to keep tarantulas, and while I wasn't over fond of feeding them, I got used to them to a degree. And like they have there's a I don't know, there's a certain some people take this weirdly when I say it, but I do find certain spider themed characters to be very comforting.
Mm?
Because some people take it in a very sexual way, and I don't really vibe that way.
I mean, I
But like,
suppose, but
yeah,
that
some
feels
people
like a
do.
very narrow application of silk.
Yeah. I'm just imagining a hug from all those arms. It just feel very
Oh
cozy.
yeah,
I
that'd
think.
be wonderful, especially if it's one
Um,
of those sorts that have all the little. I don't know the specific term for it in entomology, but all those little hairs.
Cilia, I think.
That sounds right. It works for me.
But I think one of the things that also other than Anansi, who I did learn about a lot as a kid, and I'm trying to get back into more nowadays, would also be Charlotte. Charlotte, like not the VTuber named Charlotte, even though she's a very cozy streamer too, but Charlotte from Charlotte's Web. Like when I used to read her story a lot, I always wanted that sort of just comforting presence who's always there for you and trying to help you out. And I'm just like, I didn't have as much of that as I wanted as a kid. I won't get too deep into that. That's dark. But like her presence, and since I was a very imaginative child, like Charlotte was just basically just like the cool mom you wanted. And I also try to have some of those vibes too nowadays.
Oh, I think that the audience would agree that you very much succeeded in that
Thank
particular
you.
endeavor.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, Spider would definitely be one of those ones that's very possible because, Charlotte's influence, um, again, and Anansi being very important.
Well, it's absolutely wonderful that you're trying to incorporate a lot of your own cultures and not just sticking with one particular meaning. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is I think it's beautiful that you're incorporating cultures and personal parts of your identity on different levels with that concept. You have the very personal lived experiences that Charlotte connects to. You've got the broader ancestry, cultural experiences of Anansi and the West African diaspora experiences that are inherently tied to that part of the world and those people within it. I
Yeah.
think it's a wonderful idea. And you know what? You know what? Like I said earlier, you are a modern woman, you contain multitudes, and you should be allowed to be both. Why not be a goblin sometimes and a spider person, some sort of spider's woman? There's so many options there. It's never been a better
Possibility of
time to
things.
be a spider person in this day and age, I would say.
Indeed. Um, and honestly, even me manifesting as a goblin and to another degree as an Oni also sort of fits a lot of these things because like growing up reading a lot of fantasy books as a kid and interacting with a lot of fantasy TV as a kid and movies and whatnot, I always felt for the goblins and the other yeah, one was put part indeed plenty of walls to draw from. Um, I've always sort of empathized and felt for your standard little random enemies and who work the little hench people, the little goblins and kobolds and gremlins or whatever who are working for the big bad.
Yeah, because
Because I always felt
it's never something that they do of choice. Like
yeah,
it's very rare. I can only think of a few pieces of media like that Undertale game where you're actually given the framework to try to explore the relationship of hostile, monstrous, so to speak, creatures like goblins outside of just the framework of violence as the only means to
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, and I've always felt for them, like, again, I won't get too dark, but, I grew up in some very strange weirdness, to put it lightly, and I always kind of related to that sort of like I'm being forced to do all this strange weirdness as this goblin, like these little goblins would have to constantly do, and they'd have to deal with all this annoying nonsense constantly and always get knocked down by life. But I always like the fact that so many of them just kept on getting up
Mm.
and going for it. Like, even if they knew they were fighting, like, super holy knight man with his like plus 90 sword or whatever, like,
Yeah.
they're just like, yo, scrap, let's go. They just went for it, for better or worse. They just kept on going for it, and I like that kind of determination they had.
Mm.
And I felt for that. And it's like, even slightly before I considered streaming, I was a goblin. Like, that was my persona on the internet, was a goblin paladin. And the paladin, like I hinted before or said before, I went to a very religious school, and had a very religious upbringing. And let's just say, like, strange religious upbringing. You can come to your own conclusions about that. But I figured I could take that sort of old crusadery vibes that was kind of pounded into my head, and decided to turn that into something a bit more positive. This is me being a little bit not really out of character, but slightly out of character,
Oh
peeling
well,
the veil
yeah,
a little
we're
bit.
allowed to here, but we're allowed
Um,
to pull back the kimono here.
yeah, just a little bit.
This is
Um,
a kayfabe safe zone in order
yeah,
to be honest and express things. Go on.
yeah, and exactly, live bait. Somebody has to care for them. Um, like, I wanted to. That's my character's brand of evil is not as evil as one would think, but considering what she learned was good, you know, she's the opposite of what she learned that was good, which is, pretty. The good she learned was pretty not good in sense of actual morality. Excuse me. So, the evil that Roselia fights for is just like, yes, I'm going to make you uncomfortable with workers' rights. Things like that. Or, I'm going to fight the water companies by filling up my reusable water bottle. Things like that.
It's so true though. Like even going back to elements of the '90s kids cultures, you got I think so many queer young adults in today's day and age looked at something like Jesse and James from Pokemon, where they're
Oh yeah.
talking about, oh, we're so evil, we're bad guys, and then it's like, yeah, we're also all about the evils of truth and love. It's like, oh, I feel like you might have a little bit of disconnect, but I appreciate the spirit.
Yeah. And, like, also, like, some of the older, and I might be remembering partially wrong, but like the older meanings of the word villain itself just meaning, basically a commoner and
I
whatnot.
was not aware of that. I knew
If
that Sinister was just, oh, this is left-handed, but that is
Yeah,
new to me.
somebody who's like bound to the soil of a villain. I'm looking up real quick, and like
Oh.
less than knightly status, a common person to protect the world from devastation. Exactly. Like, I very much am. I'm a common person. I am like
A woman of the people.
I might, have become a knight, but I am, if anything, I'm essentially a hedge knight. um, I am somebody who started as, a commoner, and I still maintain the commoner vibes, because it's important. I'm not a big fan of most nobility, except you, princess. I know you're there somewhere, probably. We'll fight later. Um, but yeah, it's that's sort of the whole villain inspiration for me, and the insistence on being evil, because yeah, the elves do be everywhere. Indeed.
Yeah, there's no real culture that's going to look at itself and say, yes, we are evil. We are very villainous. It's one of the great fallacies, I would say, of media like Dungeons and Dragons, because if
Yeah,
none of some might consider themselves neutral, but no one would really look at their culture that they are an active and willing participant in and say, yes, that this is we are doing evil here. Even the baby kickers and the dog arsonists and all that, they're still like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. So it makes perfect sense to me that you would have something where it's like, this is just what was culturally accepted as the general norm of morality. Yeah, that makes
yeah.
perfect sense.
And that's why I like to fight against the quote unquote good that, was learned about. Like, people, for instance, considering existences such as our own, being trans people, as being evil. Fine then. I'm very evil then. Bring out your Batman, I'll kick his ass.
Wonderful. Of course, Batman being a gay man, or played by a gay man in all
Rest
of
in
the
peace,
media,
Kevin.
what a wonderful man. If he wasn't gay and also not dead, in a heartbeat. However, he was crucially gay and tragically dead, so anyhow.
Rest in peace, man. Rest in peace.
What a wonderful man. But yeah, not to get too off track by talking about how the most inherent and important part of Batman is the understanding of coming from places of great trauma and personal difficulty, and that ultimately it's the shared humanity that's more important than any sort of law and order. I'm getting off track. Though.
Oh, go on. I'm fine with that.
Best Batman brought so much to the character.
Oh,
Absolutely.
so much so.
Absolutely. Yes. Like, it's consistently, he portrayed Batman in the best way possible. He is, in many ways, the anti-Frank Miller in terms of tone.
Oh, yeah.
Frank Miller,
Right.
absolute hack. I don't care who he is to people. I don't care how successful he's been. On site, any parking lot of any restaurant in the country, I will fight Frank Miller and I will destroy the man. But
I'll bring the popcorn.
Oh, thank you. I would absolutely love that. But yeah, it's so important because going back to what I was talking about with the Warhammer 40k, which, by the way, Bates, I do appreciate that it was originally meant as satire. However, as the booty shorts I have for my workout days say, satire without clarity of purpose is indistinguishable from the oppression it means to make fun of.
Gotta have a sizable booty to have that fit on there, and I respect it.
Oh, thank you. I try.
Fellow owner of a sizable booty. Hell yeah.
Oh, God willing, it will only get bigger from here.
Amen.
But yeah, on top of that, it's so important to they get so bogged down in like, oh, they're not really a hero, they're like an anti-hero at best. It's like, no, that's terribly boring. Like the world expects us to appeal to be appealed to the sorts of things that we would consider anti-heroic at best. The actual superhero is the one that is able to work outside of the systems that create that sort of ideal. It's like the best Batman is the one that recognizes he is essentially just the good circumstances and people he had in his life away from being one of the villains that he regularly tussles with. He cares more
Yeah.
about them as people first than any sort of law and order, really.
Yeah, like Bates says there, Batman cares, and that I think Kevin Conroy's portrayal, like we were mentioning, was super important because, like, I think one of the moments I remember most about that Batman was a man who goes to a super powerful psychic little girl and
Mm.
makes sure to spend, like, God, that one broke. Even thinking about it breaks me a little bit. Ace, yeah, where he sits down with Ace and makes sure that her passing is comfortable.
And this is
Just like,
after
God
he has been
damn.
explicitly told you are going to have to murder this little girl in order
He
to save the city or whatever.
Yeah, like the truth of Batman, like obviously, you know, like depending on who's writing him, and you know, there's obviously, like, you know, yeah, baby doll Clayface, yeah, like you can't, a superhero story itself is not going to be realistic at all, obviously.
Of
It's
course, yeah.
and, like, you know, obviously you could say Batman should just buy out all the things or whatever, and in some places he does actually do things like that, um depending on who's writing, of course. That's one of the things that happens, but like the thing about Batman that I think he shows really well, and also like one of his sidekicks, Cassandra Cain, shows really well too, is that they actually are very compassionate people, um, who try to, who at their core, one of the reasons they don't kill is not because they are, like, you know, they're well aware that, you know, killing the Joker would stop a lot of nonsense, but like that's not his job. He is not an executioner. Um, you start doing that, you get into Punisher territory, and the Punisher is very obviously portrayed as not a good guy.
Yeah.
Does he occasionally do things that are good? Sure. Is he a good guy? No. Is he supposed to be a good guy? No. Batman is supposed to be a hero. Maybe a darker hero, maybe a bit more of a broody fellow for obvious reasons,
Of
but he's
course.
still a compassionate person. And I think the best incarnations of Batman, like one of the best incarnations of him, I think, Brave and the Bold. Like, a lot of people used to discount that show because it was more childish and whatnot and lighthearted, but like he was always a very compassionate, kind person who always tried to help people out in that show. And that's not a
Of
Kevin Conroy
course.
one, but like he like really showed that he cared, and wanted to make sure that, you know, no matter what happened, you know, he wanted people to get help. Like, even in some of the darker stories, when certain people write him wrong, they sometimes occasionally remember to write in the fact that he does care. Like, for instance, as much as I have issues with the story The Killing Joke, there's those brief moments and lines in there that come out which are too good for that story, where it's like, look,
Honestly.
Joker, let me help you. You need help, man.
Yeah, like after
we
all
have to
that,
stop.
he is still ultimately trying to help. He's not there to
Yeah.
punish.
Yeah, he's not there to punish. He's not there to show that he's better than anybody. He just wants to help, and it's more of the system failing and him having to clean up the mess constantly that grates on him, obviously. Yeah, like, honestly, the fact that he's so damn scary and that just stops people sometimes is part of the whole vibe. And that's a good point of just, like, you know, using darkness to your advantage. So yeah, like, I think those are the best versions of Batman, and I guess that's kind of like, some people consider him to be a villain for things like that. Like, I guess like some people in his world would consider him to be a villain, you know, because he's like a dark, scary character, you know, with very devilish overtones, you know, because, like, again, pointing ears, always in the shadows, punching things. Like, yeah, that's, some people consider that scary, and that's sort of like, I don't know, like that, those vibes of, you know, bringing that kind of justice or whatever, showing that darkness does not always have to be a bad thing, I think, because darkness can be scary, and what lurks within the darkness can also be scary and not always good, but it can also be peaceful. It can also be comforting. That's part of my Paladin Oath, is that's my own little custom oath, is the oath of benevolent darkness, where I try to bring that sort of comfort, the sort of calming, dark comfort, the shade of a tree on a hot day, or
Going back to our mutual roots of religious education schools, that also works perfectly there. Because, everyone always remembers, to live in the light of God. But, they also very rarely remember that there's also a sacred night aspect to that,
Yeah.
like the soothing, the comforting, the easing of the stress and suffering of the day into something gentler.
Night is for rest.
Absolutely.
And, even if you're a nocturnal person, a lot of times night's going to be pretty chill. And I love that. That's why, I love being up at night a lot. I can't always do it as much as I'd like to, but I like normally how, and I don't live in a big city right now, so obviously there's differences, but like even in a bigger city, sometimes it's not always going to be as crowded or whatever. It's peaceful to a degree. Sure, bad things can happen in the darkness of night, but like
Bad
a lot of
things
times,
happen in the light of day just
oh
as
yeah,
often. So.
definitely. It's I don't know. It's just like I like that sort of thing. Darkness being peaceful and chill, and
Yeah.
sort of giving people comfort. And that's what I like a lot about certain things. Like in various when Batman's written well. I think that's just a very good part of a good story, and with villains of my type.
Yeah. I think you said it absolutely beautifully there, and I think it showcases amazingly how important it is to be able to for those of us who have never had a chance to see that sort of figure, that sort of positive role model of something, taking something that is disparaged and giving it a chance to be seen as something gentle, loving, supportive. It's very important, and it extends beyond just the more theoretical, conceptual angles of like light and darkness. It pervades well into everyday life. People don't really have the sorts of they don't really have always the interaction and the ability to just talk and get to know people that are different than them, which is why it's so important to be able, if such influences don't exist in the day-to-day, it's so important to be able to create those figures in those spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. And like my paladin oath, talks about, the comfort, the flexibility, and working with others and whatnot is very important to the whole, experience of being a person. Because the four tenets, I'll go over that real quick. Like I won't get too in depth there, but like comfort, like I mentioned earlier, flexibility, realize that not everything is black or white. The light is not always good, darkness is not always evil. Find the truth through analyzing the situation to the best of your ability, and ask and offer aid as needed. Try your best to be realistic and apply common sense as much as possible. That's I think one of my favorite tenets of my oath there. Accountability and compassion as well, being the other two there. Very important parts of the oath of benevolent but very evil, yes, darkness. And I think that sort of flexibility and looking into things a bit more is important to keep yourself centered and grounded. Because if you just sort of have a sort of one-track mind with these sort of things, it's not good for you. It ain't healthy.
Oh,
If
for
that makes any
sure.
sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've usually, well, so far at least, there's only ever been one other episode of this, so I can't exactly say we usually, but I've been aiming for this to be roughly around 3 hours or so, so we're nearing the end of our time. But before I open it back up for plugs and calls to action, I think we should perhaps go through a little bit of lightning round. Some quick
All right,
and dirty, not dirty questions.
let's go.
All right, so favorite color.
Purple.
All right. Ideal pet if reality was no object in terms of ease of ownership or morality of owning it.
Cassowary or octopus?
Interesting. You got yourself a bird and you got yourself a little person that just don't live long enough to become a full-blown culture. Interesting.
Thank you, Tier Zoo. Thank you, Tier Zoo.
Truly an amazing. All right. Favorite team to root for can be any sorts of teams. Sports, culture, I don't know. I don't care. What's your favorite team?
Ooh, that's tough. I often will root for whatever the underdog in the situation is. So I guess the underdog is often my favorite team.
Makes sense. What are the ideal things you look for in a platonic partner?
Communication, respect of boundaries, and I guess realistic expectations and understanding. So like, not going like you haven't spoken to me for a day, you're evil or whatever, not going like that. So just like common sense.
Understandable. Favorite tabletop system? Or systems if you can't winnow it down.
I only have experience with D&D 5e and a little bit of Pathfinder 1.0. So I don't have a exactly huge breadth of knowledge about, but from what I've heard about Pathfinder 2, it seems like a lot of fun, but I like, I guess, slightly homebrewed 5e quite a bit.
Oh my god. Then you have really got to talk to Beatrix about things off stream because my god, that slut is down for so much. All right. What is your guilty pleasure?
Other than isekais?
Yeah, other than isekais, it can be food, it can be things that you know are trashy or problematic or whatever, but it's still something you really enjoy.
Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
Oh my god, I remember that movie. I can't imagine it has aged well now. Oh my god.
Not aged well. But there's always something about my name is Betty that's just gonna fucking break me almost every time. Despite how stupid it is.
It's now blue. Or whatever it was. We
Red claws.
We taught him Kung Fu backwards as a joke.
Yeah, like, it's so stupid, but like, there's a certain... You can also tell that the people who made it do love the originals.
That is a lot of nuts.
That's a lot of nuts. You want fries with that? Just, oh god. I'm bleeding, making me the victor. Yeah, if I will go on. I used to religiously watch Kung Pao. For whatever reason, that was allowed, but Pokemon was banned. I don't know why.
Oh my god, what a household.
Right? What a fucking house. But yeah, that would probably be my favorite guilty pleasure is Kung Pao. And I guess occasionally, like, just I don't know, like putting hot sauce where it doesn't, like putting hot sauce on foods it does not belong on. I
Like
like hot sauce on waffles.
on waffles?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I mean, like chicken and waffles, I
Oh yeah,
imagine that
okay,
there's some
that's good.
overlap there. That doesn't seem
There
too
is
bad.
overlap. Sweet and spicy go together amazingly.
Very true. Not enough cooks know how to blend flavors in interesting and unexpected sorts of ways.
That's the secret to my curry. When I cook curry for people, it's sweet and spicy.
Oh, I'll have to remember that. That's a fun little trick.
Ask Beatrice to ask me a little bit of things later, and I can tell her.
All right, I'll have to do that. I'll pass it along to her.
All right, hit me with them other questions. I'm here.
All right, favorite musical artist or group?
Group, I'll go with the Korean group Dreamcatcher.
Oh yeah, I've heard about them a little bit. The friend of the channel, Night Adorer, is a very big fan of K-pop.
Yeah, a lot of really fun there. For singular music artists, that's very difficult because there's like so many great musicians. But I'm gonna say to a friend, I'm gonna call out a friend here, Renko Matic. She is the one who sings the opening and like most of the music on my channel is
Oh,
her Toho tracks.
oh.
So what is best in life? At risk of sounding like a certain horrifying person from a certain manga series, or to risk sounding like Roose Bolton. Quiet life. Just a nice, chill, quiet life. For me, that's one of my favorite things. I don't like getting involved in a lot of other people's business. Most of the time, I just like sort of chilling out and living a quiet life with friends and family. That's me. I'm not super loud or anything. For me, that's a quiet, peaceful life is my sort of ideal. Obviously, for different reasons than Roose Bolton and Kira Yoshikage.
Understandable. I can't imagine you're the sort that would enjoy having a bunch of hands around.
No, thank you.
All right. Oh my god. Oh, that was a good stretch. Oh,
That's annoying.
favorite junk foods.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Definitely spicy potato chips are among them. So let's say sweet and spicy potato chips. Like I like that sweet chili Doritos that they have.
Ooh, yeah, those are
Very,
those
like,
are good.
They sort of hit the right. They hit the right sort of vibe for me. Absolutely terrible for me, but I like them.
Oh, understands. Hunter asks, Chandelure. That's the
Yes.
full question. I
Yes.
don't. Oh,
Chandelure is
okay.
an amazing Pokemon.
All right.
One of my favorites from that generation. Gen 5 all the way.
All right. If money was no object, you didn't have to worry none about any kinds of safety issues and nothing. What would be your ideal style to live dressing as day to day?
Morike or Dark Morike, like sort of a dark
Oh,
Morike or Forest Girl sort of vibe.
you love to see it. You know, cottagecore is so big. I think it really is just the West catching up with the idea that Morike is a very fun fashion.
And if not that, Nightcore.
Oh, I've only heard that as a musical genre. How does that translate to clothes?
Night with a K.
Oh, I see. That makes
so kind of
adventure-y
looking things, you know.
Casual wear armor.
Yeah, things like that. Casual dagger strapped somewhere on you. Things like that would be pretty cool. And if not the sort of Morike or even cottage vibes or that sort of fantasy vibe, even with all of that money, I would still sometimes go back to my typical, you know, old shabby comfortable, soft sweatpants and pajama bottoms and oversized t-shirts. Like, when I'm at home, you can't beat that.
Of
It's so
course.
comfortable. Like, right now I'm wearing a house coat that's like I've had forever, but it's still soft and fluffy.
Oh,
An
wonderful.
old plain t-shirt, some old pajama bottoms, and comfortable socks and fluffy slippers. Like, it's so cozy. I can't get any better than that. Like, for just what's my favorite system? Is why is it winter? Winter's my second favorite season. Autumn is my favorite season though, because it's not quite at winter levels of, well, when I at least have seasons to deal with. I don't have seasons here, but when I do have seasons, I like the sort of visual contrasts that, many places that have a proper autumn experience. And autumn was also the season that my wife was born in, therefore making it the best one by
Oh.
default.
Oh, that is wonderful. Time and money is no
Yeah.
object. What is a skill that you would love to learn? If time, money, no object.
Ooh. Live 2D rigging. If I had time,
Oh.
money, and energy, I would love to do, like, make my own stuff there.
Again, you should ask Beatrix. She does most of that sort of stuff in this
Yeah.
business arrangement, but yeah.
And if not that, it's a good one I would like to do. I guess smithing.
Ooh. Anything in particular you'd like to smith? I have a funny feeling I know some
You have a funny feeling you know.
answers, but...
Yeah, 2 guesses in the first, or 3 guesses first. You don't count swords.
You
Swords. I
know,
love me some swords. No
that's
shock
what
to
they say.
anybody.
Every good, self-respecting, woman-loving woman should have at least one sword, if not as something they own already, as something that you get in times of wedding anniversary gifts.
We actually did. Even though I wasn't out at the time, we did have a
Yeah.
sword at my actual wedding.
Oh my god.
It was a very fantasy-themed wedding. I also do have a few swords. I keep them, like, stored away, though I need to clean some of them off because it's been a while. But I do love me some swords. And, maybe a battle axe here and there. It's important.
It's a very traditionally lesbian weapon, not a lot of people remember or respect the labrys.
Oh, I do love me the labrys though. Also, my main in Persona 4 Arena, AO.
As a representative of the Scythe Club, you endorse lesbian sword swapping. Swords are good, they're educational.
Amen.
Very
Amen.
true. If you get hurt with a sword, then you've learned a very valuable lesson.
Exactly. Wear armor. Don't
very
get hit.
True. Very true. All right. 2 truths and a lie.
Ooh, okay.
Take your time on this one. I can vamp if you need.
That's a bit of a juicy one, yeah.
Blah. Blah. I'm gonna suck all your blood out. I'm gonna suck you live.
Oh no.
Live bait.
Bait, run! Run, bait, run!
I'm a very inefficient vampire. I got so many teeth that are too short.
It could be very efficient. It could be like a lamprey sort of thing going on.
Oh, I hadn't considered that.
This is so difficult because, like, there's so many random weird things about me I could use for all this. I'll go with this. Can we narrow this down maybe for a theme of truths and lies? Yeah, that could help.
All right, let's see. Truth
like a category. Yeah.
Truths and lies. Wild lived experiences? Is that too broad still?
No, that works. All right, so I got a scar in Germany as the result of a of a World War II villainous World War II soldier. I have been skydiving, and let's see.
Last one's always the hardest.
Last one's always the hardest. And I let's see, what's a good one here? Because there's so many juicy ones to pick from. So many juicy things to pick from. I once met, or not met, but I once saw Jeff Goldblum in the back of a golf cart driving past a booth I was working at. It was very surreal, and he looked dead to the world.
Huh. That is an interesting question.
So, yeah.
Hmm.
I got a scar from a villainous soldier in Germany, or was caused by a villainous soldier in Germany from World War II. I've been skydiving, and Jeff Goldblum on a golf cart. Which one do you think is the lie?
Oh, chat, do any of you have any answers you would like to lock in? Let's see. Personally, I feel like the first one is a little too specific. Like, it's the sort of thing you'd say, and then it'd be like, oh, well, of course, what sort of villainous types from World War II era history would actually still be around and in enough fighting condition to give you a scar.
Bait has to remain impartial because Bait knows the answer to this one, yeah.
Understandable. First one, I can't sense the hammer looking at us too much. Okay,
Right.
So that's Hunter's guess. I'm gonna say I don't think it was Jeff Goldblum. I think it was Jeffrey Tambor.
I do not know who that is. The lie was the second one. I have never been skydiving. The first one happened to quote Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, from a certain point of view. My father was playing Wolfenstein, and he was playing the new expansion, new at the time, Spear of Destiny.
Yeah.
And he opened a door, and a Waffen SS dude popped up going, ah! Scared the shit out of me. And I freaked out, moved my head, and it banged into the sharp edge of a table. So the forehead scar I have, I can say, was caused by a Nazi when I lived in Germany.
Oh my god!
And the final one was very much true. I was at a very big comic convention in a certain place in a Yeehaw land, and Jeff Goldblum was just there, driving past riding past our Star Wars booth, because I was still working at the with the Star Wars stuff there, and he was just there, and he just looked so fucking tired. And this was a surreal experience.
Absolutely so, incredible.
There you go. Skydiving is where I draw the line. I will not go skydiving anytime soon. I like good old terra firma. Thank you.
All right. What was your thought process in how you came by your name? This is, I suppose in general, a lot of VTubers could answer this in terms of VTubing, but also it has the double meaning of for the trans guests of, what spoke to you in your name?
Okay, so considering I have a few of them, I'll start with the obvious screen name first. I mentioned the whole Goblins thing earlier about how, I empathized with them all the time. Paladin, I'm reversing the old holy stereotype of it and being a dark paladin of definitely being super evil. Yeah, definitely.
Of course.
And Roselia is a callback to my old Pokemon meme page days, back when I used to be in a weird Pokemon meme community on Facebook. I had a page that had 1,000-ish followers, and I was an admin on several other pages that had quite a substantial amount. It was in the same era of like Brock Obama, like as in the trainer or gym leader Brock, Amabo Korb, and a bunch of other weird ones like that. And I was in that sort of weird circle for a long time. And my username then was Roselia. And it stuck because Roselia is my favorite Pokemon because she's literally a little green grass goblin.
Understandable, yeah.
So Roselia stuck. And then for my goblin name of Moonrocks, Lost Walks. Lost Walks because my sense of direction is basically like Roronoa Zoro meets Bugs Bunny
Oh,
and
Bob,
fucking
I
Ryoga
feel
from
you so
Ranma One Half.
much. I feel you so much.
And there's Ranma One Half reference because almost every trans person I feel has seen that at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Moonrocks because I am a little bit of a lunar cultist in a weird way. Like, I almost every time I get a chance to see the full moon, I kind of just stop and stare for a while. Obviously I don't transform or anything, but I just love the moon. It's so pretty looking, and
It
it's just a
really
nice,
is.
gentle light at
The
night.
moon is a great, big, beautiful lesbian who cares for you
Exactly.
very much.
And she's a waterbender.
Of course, of course.
That's really cool.
It's a shame that you got dumped by the moon, though. That's rough, buddy.
Oh boy.
All right. This next one has been very divisive in the past,
boy.
but you must pick one. Either every time you need to use a car, whether you are the driver or a passenger, you must fight an angry chicken that is going to try its best to attack and harm you. Or, once a year, there is a chimp with a sword that will track you down. You can negotiate the times, but you must have a sword duel with a chimpanzee at full chimpanzee strength once a year.
That is tempting. Because on one hand, considering I was raised by essentially dollar store Klingons, the lust for battle is constantly within my blood.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I know better, and I know that you don't fuck with chimpanzees.
Is the chicken defeatable or immortal? So every time the chicken dies, if it is ever killed, it will simply be replaced by a new chicken. The chimp, I think. Well, I guess it depends if you duel them to the death, really. But if not, the chimp will live as long as you do, sort of a soulbound sort of situation.
Excuse me. I suppose the
Can the chicken be impeded, or will it reach you no matter what?
Oh no.
As soon as you get in a car with the intent of going somewhere in it, there will a chicken will spawn inside the car, perhaps like a slasher villain springing up from the back seat.
So I'd say, as a responsible parent, I'd want the chicken, because that's dinner.
You know, very true. It's like you kill the chicken so you can drive somewhere. Well, now we've got a dead chicken. That's half the reason why I was going to the store.
There we go, see? And that saves you money. Because, like, there's various ways to take out a bird that size. Won't get too into it on stream, obviously. But on the other hand, I would also like to befriend that duelist chimpanzee, because that would be a fun fight. But realistically speaking, as a responsible mom, free food.
Yeah, you know, honestly, very fair. As a follow-up, though, to the chimp section, which would you prefer? A fixed date once per year, or it just happens sometimes in a calendar year? And would you rather the chimp come to you, or you and the chimp go to a second location? sort of like
I think
called away to a land far, far away for the spirit of the duel or whatever.
Yeah, I think I like that option of like having it a specific date and then we both get summoned to a different location to have our duel, because it's an important thing. It's fighting day, and I love a good fight. So like, because those are both like the chicken again. That's a responsible choice for me.
Of
But if I didn't
course.
have to worry about being a parent, fighting the chimpanzee, I would more than likely get my ass handed to me. If it wasn't like to the death, honestly, the chimpanzee could be teaching me some important lessons.
See, the problem is you gotta be very careful with weapon choice here,
Oh
because
yeah,
if it's like a katana or a long sword or anything, sure, that's fine. But if you're having a rapier duel with a chimp, that is far
wow,
too much sexual tension you have created by using a rapier. Like a
that's
rapier
terrifying.
is a weapon with a horny poison at both ends of it, I find.
That's what I am mildly confused, but
All right, we're almost done here. Second to last question. You have
hit me.
been put in charge of reproducing a remake to a beloved live action movie. You have all the budget you need. You can get any actors you want for it, all
Ooh.
that. However, one of the original cast in this live action film gets to remain a human actor. Every other character, human, non-human, has to be a Muppet. What is the movie you're reproducing, and who is the one character / actor that isn't replaced by a Muppet?
Oh, this one is easy.
Oh?
Pirates of the Caribbean. Johnny Depp gets to stay human.
Oh my god.
It would work. Or it would work perfectly. It's basically just Muppets Treasure Island 2.
You make a very strong point.
And
But personally, I would
yeah,
have gone with something like Orlando Bloom is the only human, since
oh, that'd be
Depp
great.
already feels kind of like he's a Muppet in the
That's the
first
best thing,
place.
though. He wouldn't be out of place.
But you're telling me you wouldn't want to see a human Orlando Bloom being all like, "Oh, you're gonna have to tell me one more time, Miss Swan, to not call
That
you
would
Miss
be pretty
Swan
funny.
because he's all chivalrous to puppet Keira Knightley."
That would be funny. Another one, though, Princess Bride, but with Andre the Giant being the only human left.
Okay, that's very good. Just
That's my second one right there.
just
That
that
would be
moment of "as you wish," and then it just Kermit screams is like, "Ah!"
It would be so good.
It would be amazing. Jumping
And
back
just the
to
yeah.
jumping back to the old man telling his grandson both being Muppet. Oh, that's wonderful.
And of course, that part at the end, there's a shortage of perfect breasts in the world, and it's just a Muppet.
Oh my god.
Mick Rickmer and
Oh
his
my
party steals the
god.
show in Spaceballs. Let's be real.
Oh my god, incredible. Absolutely incredible.
There we go.
All right, and the last question of our show. Did
All
you
right.
have a good time?
Yeah, I did. I loved it here. Like, thank you so much for having me. I don't often do things like this, but this was such a good time, and I appreciate you having me here.
I am so glad to hear that. You have been an absolute delight to have here. One more time, can we get a round of applause from the audience? Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Now, before we wrap up, formally speaking, like, is there anything again that you would like to promote, plug, anything you want to talk about, to talk up to folks?
Yeah, just come visit my channel if you ever get the chance to and want some cozy vibes with lots of Soulsborns and stuff. A lot of cool things coming out in the future. As you see there, the last thing I was playing was Genshin Impact. I'm doing a less than mild challenge run there, which is where I only play as the default character you get at the beginning of the game, nobody else.
Oh. Oh,
and I
don't
have to
don't
find
you
a way
have
to sleep.
certain things in the world you need to do for like platform and puzzle solving?
So yeah, we are seeing how much we can do without that. Um,
Oh,
and if
okay.
there's an absolutely necessary part, we will do what we have to do. But for the most part, direct damage must be dealt only by the traveler.
All right. Sounds very challenging.
It has been, but it has been so much fun because I can put all the upgrades into one character.
All right. And are there any other things that people should be on the lookout for you? If
Yeah.
you, for instance, your big events or
Oh
the
yeah.
light novel you're talking about?
Yes. Hopefully early next year, we're going to be doing our big live 2D debut, which is you're going to see a more animated version of the PNG I'm using here. Um, and the other one I showed earlier. Um, and there's going to be karaoke, there's going to be games, there's going to be lore, and there's going to be Q&A stuff then too. So I will obviously announce everything there. There's links on my Twitch page to everything you need to know about me and how to get in contact and all that. But just even if you just want to drop by and hang out for a while on my Twitch, that would be greatly appreciated. It's good to have people.
And I highly recommend it. It is a wonderful time with a wonderful lady who has been a wonderful guest here. Thank you so much again, Roselia.
Thank you
Oh,
for having me.
we are gonna wrap up and send this love to someone else. As the guest of honor, is there anyone that you would recommend we toss over, Goblin or no?
Let's see here. You know what? Somebody else is having a 1,000 viewer or 1,000 follower Twitch celebration, and it's Biddle's tune.
Oh, all right. Yeah, sure. Send their link over, and I
Yeah,
will send us over there.
there we go.
Oh, wonderful. I love her already. She's got this wonderful rubber hose animation aesthetic. Fantastic. It reminds me of the things that my father used to show me growing up. Anyhow.
Oh yes, and she's another trans VTuber, so more support.
Oh, wonderful. All right, we are going to be raiding over to Biddlestone here. If you are coming along for the raid, here are some raid messages you can use. Anyone can use the first one. If you got a subscription here, you can also use the second one. So pick and choose whichever one you want to use. And again, thank you all so much. I have had a wonderful day today talking to a wonderful woman, and I cannot wait to do this again.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a wonderful time, Griselda. And tell Beatrix to thanks to her for organizing the whole thing. Much appreciated.
Oh, of course, of course. I'll be sure to pass that along, and hopefully it won't be until the next time, whenever I do one of these, that I'll see you and talk with you again. But for those of you watching on YouTube, that's right, I see you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Love you. Kisses, smooches, hugs, whatever you need. Your auntie cares very much for you. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.